Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Numbers by Joe 250 from Daytona. My name is David Westergreen. I will be joined this evening by our producer, David Huckleberry, and my co-announcer, Zach Evans. And this is the final race before our playoffs, Zach. We're gonna have drivers with a lot of different agendas racing tonight. Give me your rundown on what you think is going to happen this evening as we go on the high banks of Daytona.
Well, certainly a lot of excitement on hand with this being the final race of the regular season. There you see the playoff standings. 14 drivers going to the playoffs after tonight. We're going to find out which 14. Kind of an open door as far as we've only had, 5 different winners this season in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series season. Justin Vandermarl is not going to be able to get himself into the top 25 in points to take advantage of his win. But otherwise, there's only 4 guys we know for sure on wins will make the playoffs, and then those gentlemen in green in the top 7 are locked in mathematically on points. That still leaves really half the grid up for grabs going into the night.
Yeah, it does. And you'll look at this grid and you'll also see on our scoring pylon that we've kind of addressed the numbers of these drivers as such. So our red, and you'll see it as orange on the pylon, will be all drivers below the cut line with a mathematical opportunity to make it in, whether be it via a win or points. And you can see right on that bubble, right? Tate Lytle's probably going to be in, barring a catastrophic race tonight, given that he has a couple of race wins this season. But you look at some of the names that are not locked in right here on the bubble: Jordan Owens, Trey Holmes. Those guys are going to need really good, solid runs. And at a place like Daytona, where chaos is kind of present and at every corner, those guys are by no means assured a good run tonight.
And of course, I mean, just look at those 2 guys on the outside looking in right now, Justin Fortner, Ryan Schold, their teammates. They're not far out, 7 and 8 points respectively. You have to imagine you always see the teamwork at these super speedways. Have to figure them and their Little Eagle teammates such as Chad Frankfield are going to be doing everything in their power to get one of those cars in victory lane and the other as far forward as possible to try and point their way in.
Right, 7-point gap from Trey Holmes back to Justin Fortner, and then a 1-point gap from Fortner to Schold. Schold and Fortner are no stranger to being on this playoff bubble at this race at Daytona. They were here last year. Don't believe either of them made it into the playoffs last season. It was Jesse Racimus pulling off a slight miracle type win last year, and Trey Holmes was right on the bubble once again last year. He finished second in that race, and by finishing second, he did not make it into the final playoff grid. So we're focusing on this playoff grid, but the race itself also has to occur. And we also have our rookie standings. Ray Bracey should be taking over the rookie standings. Mike DeWalt is here tonight. So are a couple of additional rookies that are running kind of one-off races. You'll see some new names racing in. We'll identify those once qualifying wraps up here in a few minutes. But actually right now, as we go into the starting grid, we had 50 vehicles enter tonight's race. We're going to be sending some drivers home. We'll let race control figure out who exactly will be going home, and then we'll give you the starting lineup. But what I can tell you is that a familiar face is on the pole for tonight's race, and that is former Daytona 500 winner Johnny Thomas in the 83 Belly Up sports car. Johnny's going to win the pole for tonight's race. Alongside him is last year's winner of this race, Jesse Racimus. Ethan Burrell qualifies third in another great run for the Ethans, and Seth Rawls will start fourth. You can see already we have those colors on the numbers to identify all the drivers that are either in, out, or looking in for now, looking out, or locked in. Green being the former. We'll get into that as we go. Tate Lytle starts fifth. Scott Crump will start sixth. Jeff Green 7th, Matthew Weeks 8th, Mike DeWalt 9th, Jess Story 10th, Nick Indelicato 11th, and Andrew Rucker 12th.
Starting 13th, Justin Wadsworth. 14th, Ty McIntosh. 15th will be Chris Wright. Nick Massey. 16th in qualifying, Ethan Stanley. 17th, Leighton Norgard. 18th, Michael Goodman. 19th, Jordan Owens. 20th, Tyler Fode 21st, Richie Hearn 22nd, Josh Adams 23rd, Connor Thompson 24th.
Gerald Campbell should start 25th, I believe. Making sure he isn't one of the drivers that got removed, as he's an open car. Josh Personette starts 26th. Chad Frankenfield will roll from 27th with Justin Vandermarl 28th. Christopher goes from 29th. Josh Robbins should start 30th. Not sure if he fully made the field yet. And Ryan Gable starts 31st. Josh Clark 32nd. Gavin Hibbs 33rd. Dusty Dewar 34th. Not sure that Zach Rogers made the field back there in 35th. In fact, I think he didn't. Ray Bracey starts 36th. He's in. They've earned a charter over there on the 7 camp. Behind him, the lots of drivers that I know of as we look through the 48 car lineup, for sure, Jonathan Cutlip, Casey Hatch, Mark Rabilis, Trey Holmes, Justin Fortner, Ryan Schold, Brent Jones, Michael Hosak, I think should round out the field.
I know I've seen Darren Staff has disconnected.
Yep. Scarborough disconnected.
Yeah.
Zach Rogers did not make the race. The question, I think, was Josh Robin. Robin's rolling off pit road, so he made it. I think that also means Gerald Campbell made it. Now, Gerald and Connor Thompson both did not make the race, it looks like. Neither of them are rolling at the moment. So a lot of...
There seems to be some confusion here.
Yeah. Wondering if somebody did not grid that should have.
Well, no, there's some guys that are saying they were told they're not in, and then Carlos Acosta is currently on track. He qualified 44th. So they're Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think I don't think anything's got to change. I think what we've got is what we've got, but
I think we got 43. I think we got 43 cars on the racetrack. So Johnny Thomas will lead him to the green. Johnny, one of those good old restrictor plate drivers that reminds me of like the Yates boys back in the day. Qualified pretty well. He might fall back. You might not see this 83 car up at the front the whole race, but he ought to be there when it counts later on tonight. Alongside him, Jesse Racines, who made that miracle comeback last season to get into the playoffs. He'll try to do it again from the outside of the front row. The pace car is in. 43 cars under the lights at Daytona for the numbers by Joe 250. Johnny Thomas hits the loud pedal. We are green at Daytona for the final time in the regular season. Johnny Thomas working towards turn 1. Ethan Burrell behind him. Tate Lytle behind Burrell. Good lineup of Pro Edge Toyotas behind the Kyle Hanshaw Racing Chevy of Johnny Thomas. And he and Burrell will go to the top of the racetrack, and that'll probably be the preferred lane tonight for the most part. These guys like to ride up near the wall. This next-gen car tends to run well up by the fence. It seems to just generate a little more speed on those straightaways. Behind Jesse Racines, you've got Seth Rawls, Scott Crump, and Matthew Weeks lined up in that outside lane. Johnny Thomas rolls off turn 4. He will lead this first lap at Daytona, and the front 5 have single filed out to the top of the racetrack.
Sorry, I am not keeping an eye. I was just trying. I wasn't saying a lot because I was trying to figure out our field, but we have 43 cars. I can't tell if they were the right 43, but they are 43 cars, so we're rolling with it.
We got 43 cars on the racetrack. That's about all we can do now. As Johnny Thomas leading Tate Lytle, running up the bottom of the racetrack. 2 cars that are in the chase at the moment. On the pylon, you can see the numbers yellow, meaning that they are currently in our field of 14. Before the race starts, we won't update that as we go. Johnny and Tate, by no means playing it safe right now. They are out in front of this field trying to control the race. And you'll see the guys in white, Jeff Green and Mike DeWalt in particular, in the 2 and 20. Those cars are white. That means they are not fighting for playoff contention. They are just here to go out and try and win themselves an Elite Racing Cup Series race.
And that's one thing that I think it's typically very interesting with the seasons where we have 2 Daytona races, where we have obviously every season starts with the 500, and that is the full distance, 200 laps, 500 miles. You tend to see a lot of patience in that race, especially in the first half. I admittedly didn't get to broadcast it this year, but if I remember correctly, we had an obscenely long green flag run in this season's edition of the Daytona 500. You don't have that much time to be patient in this 250-mile race tonight, especially if you're one of those guys that needs to get that track position to get front for points, to go for a win, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we ran 170 green flag laps at Daytona in this spring edition of the 500, and there is some 3 wide right now. Jet Story and Ethan Stanley have both been hung out in the middle of the racetrack, and the way this next-gen car kind of works is it forms 2 very long lines in the top and bottom of the racing surface, and then everybody kind of picks and chooses and alternates between one of those 2 lines. The outside line kind of side drafts that inside line back, tends to get a little bit of speed and a little bit of pace, but then stalls out at some point, and the bottom starts to move back to the front, and it kind of shuffles back and forth as up front, Tate Lytle looking at trying to throw a block on Nick and Delicato for the race lead. We're not seeing those 2 there up front. There they are. And Delicato, the 3-wide TV number 10 car, he is locked into the field. And he has not won a race this season. I think he'd tell you as he drops down to side draft Tate Lytle here on lap 5, he's looking for a race win.
Oh, certainly. I think a lot of these guys, I mean, let's just be honest about the landscape of this 2024 B Belly Up Sports Cup Series season. The Ethans have sucked up a lot of the oxygen, right? So here's a chance at Daytona, a little bit of a wild card. I don't think it's as random as a lot of people claim it is, but certainly it opens a lot of avenues for a different winner, a first-time winner for this season, or maybe even for all time here in Elite in the Cup Series. Nicky Delicato certainly will be one of those drivers looking to take advantage of that tonight.
Yep, as he dives in front of Tate Lytle, stealing off the bottom and opening up the top for Johnny Thomas. You look through this top 10, I mean, there are some names that would fit your criteria of being a first-time Elite Series winner. You got Seth Rawls in that yellow and green car up at 4th in line up in the top lane. Mike DeWalt there in the middle, and the DeWalt car, obviously, in the 20. He's a rookie in this series, definitely has not won a race yet. Justin Wadsworth, a guy we've talked about at length this season as a guy hunting his first win. And the 2 cars behind him is Michael Goodman, who's been here a long time, has not yet found a way to pick up a win, but tends to run near the front at these plate tracks and find a way to finish. That's what it's going to take, as Matthew Weeks jumps out from the outside lane. That's no stranger to winning at Daytona in this series. He's a Daytona 500 champion. He jumps in front of Nick and Delicato and starts pulling the bottom line forward.
Watching these lines develop, and you already touched on it a little bit. High and low is definitely where you want to be. The middle in this package that we've seen this season at the super speedways, really the kind of sucker hole, the danger zone. You do not want to be in that middle lane. Typically, if you get stuck there, you're not going to get a lot of help, and you're going to lose a lot of ground. Of course, I say that, and no, that's not Josh Robin. That is
Trey Holmes.
Trey Holmes, I believe, sporting the red Budweiser scheme.
We'll have to touch on that.
I mean, that was in the news this week, of course.
Trey likes to keep he runs the 88, I believe, for Dale Jr. as being one of his favorite drivers. And this week, Dale Jr. throwing back his late model team to the Budweiser 8 in a deal with Anheuser-Busch. And Trey's gone ahead and jumped that paint onto his 88 car tonight. And he and Jonathan Cutlip did not qualify particularly well, but they're already starting to move forward.
Yep, that announcement this week. First time the Bud 8 will be on the track will be the South Carolina 400 at Florence Motor Speedway in South Carolina in November.
Ooh. Look at the move by Trey Holmes.
Trey's got to try and make the middle work. He had already looked that one time. Nick Massey, I believe it was, behind him that had thoughts of going with him and then did not.
It's his teammate Jonathan Cutlip right now pushing him, and now Ethan Stanley jumps in to join the party. 3 of our currently in the playoff drivers, but Cutlip and Holmes really cannot afford to be involved in an incident. Neither of them are locked into our playoffs. Cutlip's done a masterful job at negotiating a very disastrous start to the season where he was not able to run the Daytona 500 effectively. Both of these cars, in fact, were out of the Daytona 500 very early on, and big time bump draft from Cutlip to the back bumper of Trey Holmes as he tries to work through the middle lane. That's ultimately sliding Andrew Rucker up to the top, but now Holmes and Cutlip find a home up at the top of the racetrack, and it hangs Scott Crump in the middle.
That was pretty well executed there. That's about the best you can hope for out of that, trying to make that middle work. But now he jumps back up. I think he just wanted to get one more little toe from Scott Crump before committing to the outside. And this is where it gets really dodgy if you're that guy in the middle. It can even get a little dodgy if you're leading that outside because of that right there. If you get a guy that's been running the middle, running the top, and you can kind of have those overlaps, and we almost had one there between Trey Holmes and I believe that was Ty McIntosh.
Ty McIntosh in the 35 car, the race sponsor on the hood of the 35 for Ty. The numbers by Joe Ford working well. It worked really well in the 500. Now Stanley goes to the top side around Jonathan Cutlip. The runs in the middle of the pack under the lights seem to be a lot stronger than they were under the sunlight in the 500. But this race has taken on a bit of a feel that the spring 500 took on, in that Pro Edge Toyotas are up front and leading. Tate Lytle, Matthew Weeks leading both lanes. Remember, Ethan Burrell, Tate Lytle dominated that race, and Matthew Weeks, who had a pit road issue, led as a lap down car effectively for a lot of that race as well. So that team very, very strong at their teamwork, communication, and execution at these plate tracks, and it's still showing. These guys have not been able to find their way around. We've seen in Delicato Johnny Thomas up at the front, but that has not changed. These leaders not trying to dice. It's the guys in the mid-pack that are trying to work their way towards the front. Here comes Josh Adams to the middle.
Josh Adams had a really good run last time out. Obviously a very different scenario here, going from the short track at Iowa to the high banks of Daytona.
And he was in the hunt for the race win last week for a little bit with this car that he's drafting with right now up the middle. Jonathan Cutlip, maybe our dominant car last week, did not get the win. Did Jonathan? That went to the guy he's side by side with in that 91 car, Ethan Stanley, for what is it, the 5th time this season?
I believe number 4.
Number 4 for Stanley. 3 have been won by the 37 car running 3rd in line. So that makes 7 wins thus far this season from a driver named Ethan.
No.
Burrell only have 2.
Burrell only has 2.
6 wins from a driver named Ethan. If you lump Tate in there, it's most of the races.
4 for Stanley, 2 for Burrell, 2 for Lytle, 1 for David Tooker, 1 for...
Oh, contact between Ty and Ethan. This is the hairiest I've ever seen the next-gen car, and the best I've ever seen the middle work. At least at Daytona.
I think that goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, right? There's a lot on the line, the playoff position, the points, the try to win and you're in, whatever the case may be. And we only have, 100 laps is a long time, 250 miles is a long time, but track position typically has been so hard to come by in these next-gen super speedway races, particularly at Daytona, and everybody's trying to get whatever they can right now.
Yeah, this front group really wrestling for position. Ty McIntosh working through the middle. Big bump draft from the rear bumper of Josh Adams. Here comes Ty McIntosh on board right now with the numbers by Joe Carr. And look at Ty shooting right through the middle. He's going to go for the race lead here before too long. Big push by Josh Adams.
Big push, and now he's trying to figure out where to go with it. Couldn't quite get around Ty McIntosh, so he's going to have to keep pushing him out to the lead. But clearly he was trying to find a hole.
Yeah, they were trying to get out of the middle, but they used the middle to move forward. And now that can be done, you'll see some more drivers going, maybe I can push through the middle. And then someone's going to close the door of the middle, and it's going to result in a fairly large wreck. But here comes Nick Indelicato to the outside of Tyler Fode, who Fode worked his way forward using that middle lane. You see his Lake Norman teammates working together just behind Nick Indelicato. That's Stanley and Crump right in front of Trey Holmes. Up front, can McIntosh lead the lap? He cannot. Tate Lytle retains the lead. McIntosh didn't lead the last lap, didn't lead this one. But that is another strong run at Daytona for this 35 car. Now, he was very good in the 500, made all his pit stops. He was working with the Pro Edge cars really well. Worth noting, he also won our Elite Truck Series race at Daytona this season. So Ty McIntosh really got a hold of this Daytona place, and he's working the bottom lane right now with help from Josh Adams, trying to lead this race.
This is where it's really challenging if you're somebody like right now, Jesse Racimus, because you're in that outside line, you see the run building in the middle, you want to jump down and cut it off like Ethan Burrell just did, or ride the train or whatever the case may be. But if you do that and the run doesn't come, then that just opens up a freight train of cars to pass you on the outside, starting with, 64 Andrew Rucker, 73 Richie Hearn, whatever the case may be. So you kind of feel like no matter what you do, it's going to be the wrong decision.
Right. You have to almost be the aggressor, right? You look at what Ethan Stanley and Trey Holmes are doing right here in the middle. The only way you find a way to move forward is if you force your way forward in this pack. Otherwise, you'll just kind of be stuck 2 by 2. But these guys are really forcing their hands. Everybody, making 3-wide maneuvers and shoving cars, a lot of bump drafting. It is a very rough and tumble race right now, but these guys are making it work. 19 laps in. I mean, they've flown by too. We're going to come up on green flag pit stops here in about 10 to 15 laps. Maybe 20 laps. They might be halfway through the green flag run right now.
And it looks like they're closing in on, that might be Corey Abbott. And this 3 wide, Corey's probably got to have to bail to the apron when they get there to avoid this being an almighty crash.
Yeah. 3 wide, Ty McIntosh in the middle. Matthew Weeks leading on the bottom. He's got Ty's former drafting teammate there, Josh Adams. And then Tate Lytle, Johnny Thomas, Jesse Racimus. They have been nose to tail in that top lane just about the entire night so far. And Andrew Rucker has gone to 4th, and Corey does bail to the apron in the 21 car. But that's going to cut up the field. And now here comes Jonathan Cutlip with help from Richie Hearn. As the field kind of backed up for the lapped car, it opened up the door for this bottom lane. Some of the guys that have been kind of trapped up top have been making their way to the bottom.
One guy I see making a lot of moves up front here is Matthew Weeks. He's been...
Norgard turns sideways on the back straightaway. Everybody's going to be able to save it. Nick Indelicato bailed out, though. He slammed on the brakes and started to drop back. 10 car quickly falling through the field. He's going to lose a lot of track position, stacked up the bottom lane. I don't think that'll break the field apart into 2 big packs, but that was a very near disaster. Ethan Stanley hooked the 12 of Leighton Norgard sideways on the back straightaway. Almost caused a big crash.
Yeah, good job there by Norgard and everybody behind him to avoid a calamity there on the super stretch here at Daytona. And now, of course, they're clearly unfazed. They're already going back 3 wide racing.
Jonathan Cutlip jumps to the middle in front of teammate Trey Holmes, and just in front of him, Ty McIntosh looking 3 wide, going after Jesse Racimus in the 70 car. Ty has been one of our more aggressive drivers tonight. So too those fueled up racing Chevys that, remember, swept the podium at Atlanta, our last super speedway track that we ran, and these guys were 3 wide that entire race too. So this has just been about as exciting as that race was, and kind of counterintuitively to the Daytona 500 when everybody took it easy and we ran green for 170 laps.
And right now the car moving forward, Jonathan Cutlip in that 5 in the middle lane. I mean, we've seen a lot more. Oh, that's almost 4 wide.
Tate Lytle got a little bit loose, maybe a little bit of a sideways push from Johnny Thomas on corner exit of turn 2. just about wrecked the 56 from the lead. Now Trey Holmes shoves Jonathan Cutlip up alongside Jesse Racimus for the race lead. Jesse knows how to get it done. He did this last year. He and Trey Holmes have both worked their way to the front, but it's Jonathan Cutlip out in front, needing to get that lap lead point. He will. That'll help the 5 car if it comes down to points. But you know these guys want to win the race. If you win the race, no doubt about it, you're in the playoffs. Absolutely done for anybody whose number is in yellow on your pylon. Through the middle comes Tyler Fode, pushed by Josh Adams. Nowhere to go for the 40 and 22, but they back out of it and have to kill the run. Fode jumps up top in front of Tate Lytle. Adams jumps to the bottom of the racetrack in front of Richie Hearn. Leaves the rest of the middle lane to kind of die out, but it'll make a run back.
Now, you mentioned when...
you were in the wall.
Oh.
We're good.
You mentioned when they caught Corey Abbott, how it kind of broke up the pack, but we can see now it's all gotten back together as one big pack here with... I was about to say Jesse Racimus. Oh, somebody's in the fence there. That might have been Tate Lytle.
Tate Lytle in the 56 car. Worth noting the usual days go. Oh, Rucker sideways on the apron, now in the grass. And Delicato's in the grass too. And it looks like those two Fords are going to be able to rejoin safely.
Wow.
They'll certainly be hoping for a caution at some point in the near future.
Oh, Rucker's got to be, 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower now than this pack.
A good thing to cover, I think, is that when we've seen all this pack racing, these guys single file when they were 2 and 3 wide, they're running about 46-second laps in this big pack. Last time by, Jesse Racimus ran a 46-second lap. When Andrew Rucker starts running by himself here, he's going to run 49 to 50-second lap times. That's in large part due to the drafting model, right? These big packs are going to cut through the air a lot quicker. More cars in these big packs going to increase the speed of everybody racing in this pack. And if you're not in the pack, you go a lot slower. And that's why Andrew Rucker will, no doubt, go a lap down unless the caution flag comes out before he goes that lap down.
The other thing that kind of happened there is, for now at least, these front 10 cars or so have gotten, well, I say that single file, and Tyler Fode's like, actually, I'd like to start a bottom lane. And he has plenty of takers.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Fode utilizing that outside lane to gather the run, jump down in front of Josh Adams, get the push on corner exit, and start to forge that bottom lane to the front. And Tyler Fode, no stranger to winning at Daytona himself. That's a Daytona 500 champion. As Cutlip and Holmes try to side draft that bottom lane, it's not going to work. It's going to force those fueled up cars to the middle of the racetrack. It's going to basically kill the outside lane. The bottom surges forward. Fode to the lead, Adams to second, Thomas to third. It's Crump and Gable now side by side for fourth, and a massive drop by those fueled up cars when they tried to come down and side draft. The guys behind just took their spot on the top. This is going to be a ruthless race.
Yeah, not a lot of conservation happening here. It's a lot of take. Even early on in this race, seeing lots of guys. I mean, there Johnny Thomas jumping down to the middle lane. Tyler Fode is working every lane on the racetrack now that he's out front, trying to stay there.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know if you can. Right, it will take a Herculean effort to stay there. Maybe the car that's doing it the best right now is that 5 of Jonathan Cutlip. Even he is struggling to maintain. Oh, they're crashing. Jeff Green, Mike DeWalt, Josh Robin in this first group. I didn't get my camera on him quick enough. They might have flipped him around and been okay.
Second group. Mike DeWalt is driving away.
The second group didn't clobber into him or anything, it looks like. It looked to me like Jeff Green got hooked when somebody came down the racetrack. It might have been Richie Hearn. We'll get another angle on this replay from the copter. It looks like maybe Richie Hearn came down the racetrack, got into Jeff Green, got Mike DeWalt sideways. Josh Robin and Justin Fortner make a little bit of contact. Gold, I think, gets away with it. And just as quickly as they were around, they were back straight.
Yeah, that could have been a lot worse for everybody involved. So definitely heads up driving by the rest of the field and a little bit of good fortune as far as Mike DeWalt, Jeff Green. Well, I say that. We'll see how much damage those two drivers have. I do not see any meatballs. So they might
I
have
don't.
gotten away with this fairly unscathed. Obviously, every bit of aerodynamic damage matters at Daytona.
Jeff gets the wall there, and that's going to be the worst of it when Jeff's right front hit the wall. But it's not a meatball, so as you said, I think Jeff Green should be capable of running in the pack fairly well. I will note that this caution was a incredible break for Andrew Rucker and Nick Indelicato, who are able to catch back up to the field. It is also going to be a break for Casey Hatch, who will no doubt get the lucky dog in the 14 car. Here's Justin Vandermarle's look at it from the 80, the Atlanta winner. He got into Richie, but I think Richie was already moving down.
I would concur.
Like Richie had followed Dusty and kind of, I think exiting the trioval kept the wheel turned a little too far to the left, and that's what caused him to start moving down. And maybe he got out of the gas a little bit, and then that's where the contact from Vandermarle happened. But everybody's on pit road for, I think they're going to take 4 tires and fuel. I don't really foresee a reason not to. Tires typically don't matter at Daytona, but when you have to put in a lot of fuel, you got time to put tires on. Jonathan Cutlip first away.
Yep.
And he definitely didn't put 4 tires on. So not everybody aligning with that 4-tire strategy. Cutlip takes the race lead off pit road. Scott Crump, Tyler Fody, Chris Wright, Josh Adams will be the top 5. And why don't we take a commercial break to bring you back the last 70 laps of this Numbers by Joe 250 at Daytona.
Since 2010, race fans have had one burning question. When will the Xfinity Series return to Worldwide Technology Raceway? You asked, NASCAR delivered. On Saturday, September 6, 2025, the magic is back. The track that launched the legendary careers of Harvick, Busch, Keselowski, Edwards, and Earnhardt Jr. is now ready to write that next chapter. We're going to introduce you to a new crop of future champions and Hall of Famers. And in the process, we'll create more of the greatest moments in racing history. NASCAR Weekend 2025, the NASCAR Cup Series Championship Playoffs, the Confluence Music Festival, and now 250 miles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. 2 incredible races, 1 challenging track, a 3-day party of epic proportions. Go to www.raceway.com and lock in your weekend racing and camping packages for as little as $20 down.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome.
This is the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar, sports commentary via podcasts, forums, and articles on topics ranging to nearly every sport. Not your usual sports site. Check them out on X or at bellyupsports.com. Blue Egg Marketing. Blue Egg is the marketing department for small businesses. For small business owners, Blue Egg is your biggest fan. Race sponsor tonight is Numbers by Joe. Numbers by Joe is an online business for iRacers and to get custom-made metal signs and stickers. We can make your number, your personal logo, your team's logo, or streamer banners. These can be made in any size, made in any shape, and are made in America. For more details and pricing, contact Joe on X at Joe24ever or request a custom order through Etsy at Numbers by Joe. 40 Racewear is a makers of ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 40 sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can, and still provide all the comfort needed for those double and triple stints. So visit 40racewear.com and check out the original racing gloves for your feet.
Perfectly timed as Jonathan Cutlip leads him down to the green with Scott Crump to his outside. Cutlip with a big jump. Help from Tyler Fode, a couple of guys that battled for the race win last week at Iowa, back up front here at Daytona.
We went just shy of 30 laps on that first green flag run. We will see if we can put together another run like that here. Everybody, of course, full of fuel. Some new rubber for most of these drivers.
Man, look at that tandem draft gap between Cutlip and Fode. They were able to pull out there pretty far. I'm thinking forward to the end of the race, especially if I'm in this pack fighting for the lead, right? The guys in the back, not necessarily, they're trying to survive. They're not necessarily trying to learn anything. But if you're Tyler Fode, you're trying to learn, if this was 2 laps to go, what would it take to win the race from there, from restarting third, right? He gives Jonathan Cutlip a really big push. They've still got a pretty sizable lead, but can he keep this draft up for 2 laps, right, without blowing the motor? He'll have to make sure that the temps don't go up on him. But then also, can Tyler Fode make a move before the start-finish line where he can go out here and practice effectively winning the race? Doesn't look like it. He goes off the back bumper of Jonathan Cutlip. His teammate is to his inside right now. He will not be able to go around this 5 car for the race lead. In fact, it'll be Ethan Stanley once again to the lead in the 91.
But like you say, that's a perfect opportunity for those guys to kind of go to school, right? Can we make that work? You know, maybe if it were 2 laps to go, he might have forced the issue and pushed a little bit harder there going into turn 3, but I imagine he was getting the blinking warnings of temperature and decide, you know, hey, we've still got 70 laps to go. I've learned what I need to know out of this experiment. Hurts them a little bit in track position where they did back up that outside lane, but they know a little bit more for, like you say, that potential green-white checkered scenario at the end of the race.
And Fode's learning who he can work with, right? Obviously, Fode knows he's got good, team cars over there at Lake Norman Motorsports. They're 1-2 right now, Scott Crump and Ethan Stanley. But Fode getting a chance to work with Jonathan Cutlip. I mean, he knows how fast this 5 car is. He knows how quick Jonathan Cutlip is, and how, on the verge of winning Cutlip's been over the last, month and a half. And he pushed Justin Vandermarl to the win in Atlanta. So Fode knows he can work. If he can work with Jonathan Cutlip, if he can form some kind of bond, some kind of trust there, that's something he can look back to later in the race as we follow along with them as the outside lane builds in front. Scott Crump just took the lead. He's got help from Josh Adams, and then it's 2 Pro Edge Toyotas, Tate Lytle and Matthew Weeks, right in front of Jonathan Cutlip and Tyler Fode. But the outside line surges forward now, and it leaves Ethan Stanley on the bottom.
Well, you say that, and immediately Matthew Weeks drops to the bottom with Tate Lytle in tow, and they're going to get out front after that high side gets a little out of shape up front.
Josh Adams got a little bit off center with the 90 of Scott Crump. Got the 90 car a little bit sideways, and look how it backs up the outside lane. The bottom surges forward. Ethan Stanley's clear of Crump. Norgard trying to clear by Scott Crump. He was sideways on the back straightaway at one point in this race. Richie Hearn was involved in that last incident, but he's up to 5th. And look at number 6. It's Chad Frankenfield in the 15. He was quiet in that first run, but he suddenly found his way forward on this bottom lane.
Of course, Chad Frankenfield. It's been a long time since we've seen him win in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series, but not a long time since we've seen him win here on the Elite Racing Network. That big win last week in the Warriors for Peace IndyCar Series, the Indianapolis 500. You know how much that win meant to him, looking to carry that momentum into tonight.
It's worth noting that confidence is confidence, right? If you're Chad Frankenfield, you win a race like the Indy 500. He just, we went 500 miles. It's a tough race to win. They run one every half season basically in this Elite Series, and Chad's been hunting it from day one, right? He's run every single one of those, and it can translate into success in other series. As Chad Frankenfield now gets turned into Ethan Stanley, just as I was talking. That might be another all-time jinx right there. Big crash here on the front straightaway. A lot of guys going through the grass trying to make sure everybody avoids the spinning cars of Stanley and Frankenfield. 15 car might not be too bad, but it looked like a bad push from Josh Adams.
There are several meatballs, which I'm kind of surprised I didn't see. Ethan Stanley has one of them. There's where he would have gotten that one. Justin Vandermarl has a meatball.
Right there, the contact with Stanley.
Trey Holmes has a meatball.
Rucker into Hibbs, into Jeff Green, it looks like. Maybe Fortner involved up there as well.
Green has a meatball. Stouffer, Andrew Rucker, Jesse Racimus. You mentioned Fortner. He has a meatball. Of course, Fortner, we mentioned one of those guys trying to make his way into the playoffs.
Take a look from further back to watch the field kind of react to Chad Frankenfield getting hooked into Ethan Stanley. Norgard, Hearn get into it. It looks like Holmes gets into the back of Stouffer, and that was the damage there. The left front tire on both Stouffer and Holmes not spinning. I have both of them on my screen. Look at the Nick and Delicato thread the needle between Dusty Dewar and Chad Frankenfield on the bottom of the racetrack. We will have to go on board with the 10 car after we continue to look through this wreck. Everybody's coming to pit road for what it's worth, at least for fuel, probably a number of them for damage. After we go on board with the 10, we should probably look at what happened to Fortner, as that's one of our playoff drivers, and that is a car that's pretty heavily damaged from this wreck. So, and Delicato is going to jump to the bottom of the racetrack here, and he is going to see just Chad Frankenfield and Dustin Dewar and make for the hole and just absolutely get it made. And he still has to drive this thing through the grass. It was not easy. We saw about 10 cars go flying through the grass down there.
That's one of the benefits if you have this kind of incident happen off of turn 4, if you do have all that, the football field as they call it, to use for evasive action.
Yeah, let's watch Fortner. This incident let's also see Jesse Racimus this year. Tom McIntosh is back here. I think they lost their track position a little bit, but Jeff gets into Nick Massey. Massey dodges it, but then when Rucker comes back up the track, he gets into Green and he gets into Fortner. Looks like Wright able to avoid, Racimus able to avoid, Gable able to avoid. Oh, we missed that one the first time. That was Dustin Dewar coming back up on the racetrack, I believe, and got into Andrew Rucker. I don't know that he would have known rejoining the racetrack that they were multiple cars wide. Rebelus makes it, and Rucker turns to go to the apron. You go around Rebelus, and Dewar was pretty clearly going to keep it on the apron, but Rucker made for the apron, and I think I probably don't deal out a tally for that one. Just a little bit of harmless contact. See, did Chad get a meatball there, Zach? I didn't check it.
He isn't showing as a meatball, but obviously he has.
He's pulling off pit road.
I was about to say he probably was trying to get a significant amount of damage repaired without losing a lap, and that's why we saw him on pit road until the last possible second there.
Yeah, typically, these cars get damage based on time, and it takes the pit crew a certain amount of time to fix them. Fortner and Green have been able to remain on the lead lap.
So chances are those meatballs were just suspension damage that can run usually in the neighborhood of 30 seconds or so of required repairs.
Mm-hmm. Of the drivers that did have the further meatballs, Chris Stouffer, Justin Vandermeer, Andrew Rucker are the ones sitting on pit road with the heaviest damage. It appears Rucker has disconnected from the service. Vandermarl, Stouffer still on pit road trying to fix those vehicles. We're down to 40 and a few damaged race cars as well, including some of our contenders going for that chase slot like Justin Fortner. So for the drivers hanging out at the back looking to dodge the wrecks, this is the first big one down. Field thins slightly, but there's a long way to go. 60 more laps.
Oh, still plenty of time for more excitement here at Daytona. I mean, 60 laps. I mean, you figure that's 150 miles here at Daytona.
Mm-hmm. Oh, worth noting, Trey Holmes is still on pit road in the 88. And that is a driver that is currently in the yellow. He is in the race, in the playoffs right now. Trey Holmes, if it were to finish right now, he would not, I believe, make the playoffs. I believe that would go to either Fortner or Schold. Probably Schold, given that Fortner was just involved in that wreck. And he's Scold's up here in fifth spot. Pace car is off. Matthew Weeks, the race leader. His teammate Tate Lytle to the inside, and Matthew Weeks gets on the loud pedal. Scott Crump trying to push Weeks out to the lead, but Weeks interested in working with teammate Tate Lytle. He drops down in front of the 56 car, and that leaves the 90 open at the top of the racetrack, which kind of is that preferred lane. Do those Pro Edge cars go up there and try to take it from Scott Crump?
Down to super stretch it. Well, Jesse Racimus has decided he's going to hang out at the back for a little bit.
Can't say that I blame him. 3 wide, Josh Robin jumped to the middle of the racetrack, just in the middle of this field, and I didn't catch whether or not that resulted in calamity. It did not. He's in the 3 wide with Hanshaw and Jess Story. He was able to pull it back to the middle. They are now 2 wide all throughout the field and following in behind Matthew Weeks.
Matthew Weeks made that jump to the high side, and it really stalled out in the bottom lane. Tate Lytle has dropped back to about 7th on track at the moment, looking to rebuild that low side.
Somebody will drop down there in front of Tate Lytle. Oh, there he is. It'll be Scott Crump with Ryan Schultz helping the 4 car. Michael Hosak is the car just behind Tate Lytle. That is another car he's in orange, but Hosak's going to need some pretty sizable assistance from other cars in this race, as Matthew Weeks follows the trend, drops to the bottom, and tries to get in front of this bottom lane as it starts to surge forward.
Speaking of, Ryan Schultz, of course, mentioned at the top of the broadcast, he really hoped to be able to work with those Little Eagle teammates and try to win his way in, or at least get enough points to make his way into the playoff field. He's a lonely man right now. Hunter Smith, not even in the race tonight. Chad Frankenfield and Justin Fortner, of course, involved in that most recent incident. Maybe Frankenfield can get back up there, but as it stands right now, Ryan Schultz is kind of on an island in that 4 car.
He'll be going to grab any help from anybody he can get it from right now. It seems like there's not a whole lot of teamwork going on in this field as Ty McIntosh jumps to the middle. He's going to have help from Mike DeWalt and a few others back there. It's wherever you can get it, the help is. We've seen team cars not work together. We've seen teammates bump draft and it go wrong already. Like you get help wherever you can find it at this point. And the inside line really stacked up. Johnny Thomas jumped in front of it, and I think that backed it up a little bit. Josh Adams, the race leader, up at the top of the racetrack, and now with Johnny Thomas in front, Matthew Weeks starting to shove the 83 car forward and reignite that middle line.
Oh, we've got a wreck. Richie Hearn is in it. Mike DeWalt is in it.
Oh, Weeks just got turned out on the wall.
This is after the yellow.
I think Weeks and Scott Crump got together. Maybe Weeks bailed out of the throttle a little bit more than Scott was expecting.
Well, we're going to have a lot to look at here on the Rebelus replay machine. Let's start with...
There's Richie Hearn and Mike DeWalt at the bottom of your screen, but that occurs, and I don't think it even sucked anybody else into it. I think DeWalt and Hearn just got sideways. And then
So this is
here's
definitely the stack up. Yep.
here's the stack. Weeks is against Johnny. Crump is against Weeks. And as they are checking up for the caution, Weeks and Crump come together, and then there's the contact, and it also wraps Dusty Dewar and Mike Goodman into it. I think Goody's actually going to be okay.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Really?
He has a meatball.
Wow. From that?
He has a meatball.
What on earth? Here's the initial
So
well,
does
actually,
Matthew
let's-
Weeks, for what it's worth, as does Mike DeWalt. At some point, we'll have to see the initial incident, especially if Ethan is looking at it for race review.
right.
Here is Michael Goodman's view of the stack up. And right there, I mean, nowhere for Michael Goodman to go.
Just a little bit of contact. I can't be a terribly significant meatball flag. All right, let's go back and look at what happened to ignite this latest incident that sees Matthew Weeks out, Ethan Burrell into the back bumper of Richie Hearn. Well, I'm not sure where Richie was going.
I think this is a case where he got stuck. He's following Chris Wright is what he's doing. The problem is Chris Wright is on the outside of 2 wide. Richie Hearn is on the outside of 3 wide. He can't just blindly follow the 9 car there. He does. He drives into the left rear of the 20, who might have been coming up a smidge, but not nearly as much as the 73 was coming down. And
Burrell
then
does get some damage in this. But you're absolutely right. I think the 73 moves down a lot more than the 20 moves up.
and it's so easy
Nick
to do-
Massey.
and that's where he gets his meatball. I don't know if I had mentioned that one or not because I was trying to figure out honestly if it was this wreck or not. But that would have been it right there.
Wow. So iRacing, when was the latest update for the damage model? I want to say it was before last week.
I don't know.
I don't think I know either. But I noticed it in our race on Thursday. There were multiple times where a very small amount of contact outright ended a race. And that was not very significant contact on Michael Goodman, on Nick Massey, on Trey Holmes earlier. And we're seeing these cars, which I think the last time we ran here, and many times before, would have otherwise been considered very tanky, very easy to take damage. You could just kind of come back from the incident. We're seeing the damage pile up on these cars very quickly.
So worth noting, at least as far as Goodman goes, I'm trying to find him. Yeah, he is back on track and he is still on the lead lap, I do believe. So that must have been suspension damage for him. Most of those meatballs have either been cleared because the drivers left or they've already gotten it repaired and back on track. The only meatball I'm seeing at this time is Nick Massey, which is more understandable in his case.
And worth noting that I just got a message from Tyler Fody. He said he got into an incident on pit road. It would have been 9 minutes ago, so it would have been under the last caution, but he gave him 30 seconds of damage on pit road.
I'm seeing Mike DeWalt was given an EOL. I'm guessing that there must have been some contact under caution if it was an EOL.
Only the race, a racing deal, and if
Or either that or he asked for, maybe he might have requested that if he has significant damage, but I'm not sure.
And ultimately, when both cars move in towards one another, I tend to agree with the no tally call. I think that's if you're assigning 60% blame to one, 40% blame to the other for the distance they moved, at that point, just call it a racing deal and move on. We've got Ethan Resner in the race control booth tonight. Mega driver. He's been around for quite a long time in the Elite Racing League. Robert Hill obviously tried to make the race, did not, wound up just short. As Ethan updates us, and Jonathan Cutlip leads us back to the green flag. He will get the jump over Josh Adams. Seth Rawls up to third, Scott Crump to fourth, Ryan Gable is up in fifth, and Justin Wadsworth has risen to sixth after a number of cars took to pit road last time, and I don't think you can make it from here, but if you save fuel and we get some cautions, it's not out of the realm of possibility. The outside line is about to stack up drastically behind Scott Crump and Tyler Fode here. And ultimately, everything stays green. Josh Adams to the race lead, pushed by 4 Lake Norman Chevys. Kyle Hanshaw wound up on the apron there in turn 3. I think he got shuffled out of line by the 8 of Josh Robin.
Yeah, I didn't catch what happened out the corner of my eye, but you did note he did end up on the apron there as we close in on halfway. Also, want to note Matthew Weeks has disconnected.
Weeks was locked in to the chase, the playoffs, so he'll be there.
Trey Holmes
next
also
week.
Done for the evening.
Who is?
Mr. Holmes.
Oh. And a tough break for a guy who will not race for a championship this season for the second year in a row, losing it at Daytona, though a lot less heartbreaking fashion this time. And last year it was finishing second on a photo finish, and this year it's getting wrecked out early. Jonathan Cutlip retains the lead right out in front of Josh Adams, and then it's 4 Lake Norman Chevys. Ryan Gable, Justin Wadsworth, Tyler Fode, the top 5. Scott Crump 6th, but he's going to lose that. Chris Wright in the 9 car is going to move forward. First time we've talked about Chris all night, and Rawls jumps out from behind the 90 just as Tyler Fode and Ryan Gable cut to the bottom to try and take the race lead.
I believe that's Nick Indelicado bailing on the backstretch there.
Sure what the 10 was doing right there. Might have gotten shuffled out of line with a bad bump. Might not have, but up front, it is all Lake Norman Motorsports. Gable to the lead, pushed by Tyler Fode. Here comes Fode to the outside. They're looking for that halfway point at the line. Ryan Gable's going to get it over Tyler Fode.
And don't look now. And I'm going to say it before Easter Blue can jinx it.
Don't you say anything. I see him.
We're at that point of every super speedway race where Britt Jones rises from the ashes and appears in the top 5.
There he is. Here he comes on the bottom. That pink and yellow car. Brent paints his own cars, man. He always has a fresh scheme. And look at this thing. It looks awesome up there and up in front of some other brightly colored cars. I'm not saying any more names. Josh Robin leading the top. Tyler Fode the middle. Scott Crump leading the bottom lane. Brent Jones, 4th on the bottom. He might want to get out of there, too.
Josh Robin almost got squeezed in the fence there in the tri-oval.
Behind Tyler Fode, it is Josh Adams. They work very well together. Adams, a former member of Lake Norman Motorsports, typically works well with that group. Chris Wright among that group as well. So, too, Josh Robin. The Lake Norman guys have really got a lot of venom up here near the front of the field, fighting against the Jonathan Cutlip and Josh Clark action. As here comes Cutlip to the inside of Robin, looking for third. Help from Josh Clark in the 28. Clark cannot make the play. Oh, Cutlip gets shuffled to the bottom by Clark with a rough bump, and Scott Crump checking up, has the room with teammate Ryan Gable in front, and they're able to get in behind the 5 car and give it a push. Oh, wow. Fode does get Gable at the line for the halfway point. Whew. If we get a caution, Dave, if you can mark down that we need to go back and take a look at the stage finish, that'd be wise.
Housekeeping note, even though he hasn't disconnected from the service yet, he'll still show his pit instead of out on the scoring pylon. Nick Massey still has that meatball. He is 6 laps down. per the elite rulebook in a super speedway race, that means he is done for the evening.
A tough break for Nick Massey, and that will mean Nick Massey does not make the playoffs this season. And
Of
kind
course,
of
I
shocking.
call it out, and immediately the meatball goes away, but too little, too late. Just a cruel twist in the knife right there at the end.
Yeah, not Massey, not somebody I would have expected to miss the playoffs this season, but it has been a particularly difficult season to acquire a lock. We've seen, like we've talked about a number of times, really 3 guys have sucked up a lot of the wins, and it's made it so that you have to be really consistent. Nick Massey has not been very consistent. In fact, there's been very few consistent drivers this season. It's a very difficult series in which to be good week in and week out, and even guys like Matthew Weeks have struggled with consistency this season. And what we're seeing is Tyler Fode continues to be very consistent, but Ethan Stanley very consistent, Ethan Burrell very consistent. Beyond that, it's kind of every man for himself, and we're seeing really talented drivers like Nick Massey fall by the wayside when it comes to this playoff battle.
It's definitely been a challenging season outside that top 5 or so. So many up and down nights, certainly some attrition-filled evenings as well. And also, I mean, let's just, point out, although we're done with them for the season, this is the first time that I can recall we've had 4 full-distance races in a Cup season here in Elite.
Yeah.
And that has not been without its challenges as well.
The endurance factor playing a part as you see just a ton of shuffling behind Jonathan Cutlip and Tyler Fode, but once they took over that top lane, it has been very difficult to wrest it from them. The drivers that have jumped to the middle, I've seen Tate Lytle working to the middle in that 56 car. I've seen Jess Story there in the 29 for RK Motorsports. RK Motorsports has had a bit of a trying season. Obviously, Carlos Acosta, Darren Staff not making the race tonight, but everybody was in the Daytona 500, and it didn't really go their way there either. But Jeff Story doing his best right here, running in the top 15. Certainly a chance to win this race yet. Currently 3 wide though with Johnny Thomas, not in the best spot right now. And look who's behind him. You might want to check up.
Ugh.
But it's old buddy, old pal Chad Frankenfield in the 15 car there, just behind Jess Story. Ethan Burrell also at the back of this field, trying to work his way forward after getting caught up in that Mike DeWalt and Richie Hearn incident.
Speaking of DeWalt, we saw him go a lap down there, getting passed by on the apron. Unfortunately, that car is still pretty wounded. He wasn't able to catch the tail of that pack, so it could be a long night still for the driver of that 20 car.
It sure could. How many laps down is he?
That was his first one.
All right, so he's got 5 more to hopefully get a caution and get it fixed. But there's nothing more disappointing than being a damaged car at Daytona riding around by yourself. I can promise you that.
No, it's tough. It's pretty demoralizing, and especially with that 6 lap down rule, you're just kind of constantly glancing at that, hoping for cautions to get another chance to fix some more damage and try to find some speed. And it makes for a long, frustrating night, especially if you're in a situation like DeWalt. He can't just park it, right? He's got to salvage as much as he can out tonight for his battle to try and get a charter for next season, or maybe even this season, as we saw with Ray Bracey. Bracey able to earn a charter since our last race because Hunter Smith had missed more races than you were allowed to miss as a charter holder here in Elite. And he's also not here tonight. Boy, that got tied up front.
Woo. Chris Wright takes the lead, pushed by Seth Rawls. Now Chris Wright leading this race. He was one of our better cars in this last year in the night race at Daytona. Ultimately, he and David Tucker made some contact late in the event that resulted in further extracurriculars after that. Chris Wright out in front in this race, pacing well, looking pretty strong. And in the middle, Tate Lytle trying to work his way forward yet again. All this following in behind Chris Wright, who's running pretty well right now. We haven't seen much of Chris Wright this season, you know?
No, this is a good run for Chris. Hasn't been the season he had hoped for either. They're closing in on Kyle Hanshaw. This will be his first lap down, so he'll move into the free pass position at this point as the field works its way around the 46 car.
I think that car is pretty clean. I think Hanshaw might have just ended up losing the draft, and in which case this car is certainly still capable of getting to the front. Seth Rawls just jumped to the bottom. I wonder if he's bailing on this front pack. He's backing up. Brent Jones, you see there, those guys streaming by on the outside. Rawls, I don't want to say it was the wrong move, but I think it was an intentional decision by Seth to drop back, try to get out behind this big pack, but he jumped to the bottom, and then they were not behind him when he did so.
I imagine it's going to build up now that he's there, though. I mean, he may not be able to lead that, and sure enough, there you see Jonathan Cutlip. He's got to try and get out front here.
Yep. Cutlip's done this all night long, really working for that race win. Josh Adams dices out from behind Jonathan Cutlip, though. He'll go to the front with help from Chris Wright. Adams, Wright, Cutlip, Fody, Johnny Thomas, the top five, and that group really is five guys that I would definitely expect to be contending for this win down to the end of the night. Five very good restrictor plate style drivers, guys that know how to get it done at Daytona. Josh Robin too. He's certainly a plate, I'll call him fanatic, a regular there, if you will. Very competitive at these plate tracks. Knows how to get race wins in this Elite Series.
I prefer to call you sickos.
No, that we are. Johnny Thomas is another one. Usually really stout at these plate tracks. I don't know if Johnny's quite a sicko for it, though. He's just good at it. Knows where to put his car. Very sharp.
There is a difference, right? There are the guys who are good at it, but maybe don't just salivate at the chance to go super speedway racing. And then there are the guys who, like you, that I think you go to bed on Christmas Eve and dream about being 3 wide middle at Daytona.
Look, that's how I grew up, man. This is the Daytona was my first race that I ever watched. Daytona and Talladega have been some of my favorite races that I've ever watched, and it's something that it's been ingrained in me since the beginning. So now that I get to participate, whether it be on the broadcast or behind the wheel, I always love it.
Don't get me wrong. I love watching the super speedway races in Daytona. I think it's special to anyone who's a NASCAR fan. That doesn't mean I enjoy being boxed up in these cars for an hour and a half, 2 hours, in the case of the 500, 3.5, 4 hours at a time with nowhere to go.
There's a certain quality. I don't know what it is, but it's just something about it where when you're drafting and it's taken away and I don't want to call it's less of a talent void, right? Because you can see up front are very fast drivers: Jonathan Cutlip, Tyler Fody, Josh Adams, Chris Wright. We've got really talented drivers up front. It's not a talent where you go to the talent goes to die. It puts you brain versus brain against the drivers around you. Larry Mack always calls it like a chess match, right? You're always trying to finagle different ways to move forward, different ways to control the race, different strategies for pit road, where it's so much simpler, but it's also so much more complicated, and out of your hands is the control of the driving, where you have to be focused on hitting your marks, etc. Daytona, you're wide open. And it becomes about beating the other drivers. And that there's something about that is just exciting, exhilarating.
And the funny thing is, like, the chess game changes literally every time we go to a super speedway. Whether it's a simple update in the sim or the weather or just even the subtle changes between Daytona versus Talladega versus now the new Atlanta Motor Speedway, the renovated Atlanta Motor Speedway, reconfigured, whatever word you prefer. There's just little differences amongst each of them that no two super speedway races are like.
Right. And until you're in the race, until you're making the moves, feeling the cars out around you, feeling the drivers out around you, understanding who you're working with, you can't plan on anything. You can go into a super speedway race and say, I'm going to go to the front, right? And I'm sure a guy like Ty McIntosh started like that in this race. Ran up at the front in this one, went 3 wide.
Get in front of the wreck. That's what I tell myself for every super speedway race. And then every super speedway race, I'm running 15th, 20 laps in.
Right. And either the way it works out, now I've got to stay behind the wreck. Now I've got to try to avoid being a part of any incidents. And your calculus changes, just like Ty's would have tonight. I think other drivers are going to run into that same boat. We're about to start putting guys a lap down here. There's these two, it's Jeff Green and Justin Fortner, that are going to go a lap down right now as Tyler Fode's going to get to their outside. There's another group just in front of them that includes Ethan Stanley. It's also got Jesse Racimus, Michael Goodman, Casey Hatch, all well off the field right now. These are all damaged cars. But the field's able to make their way around the lapped cars.
There you see the gap to the next pair of cars on the tail end of the lead lap, just at the front of the frame as they were heading down the backstretch. I'm sure we'll get another glimpse of them shortly, whether it be through the tri-oval or next time down the backstretch.
On board there with Tyler Fode, what you're seeing from the bumper of the race leader in that 40 car. Fode pushed by Josh Adams. Jonathan Cutlet still leads the bottom lane. And we've gone on a somewhat of a tangent, but for as exciting as the plate races can be, it makes the defeats and the wrecks and what we're about to see again with when you're pacing with a very damaged car, it makes that all the more difficult to stomach.
For sure, because I mean, for a lot of guys, these races are the ones you circle on your calendar because they are Daytona, especially the 500, or because this is the cutoff race. You can really, it's really easy to hype yourself up for these races. Even if you don't consider yourself a super speedway expert, or you don't think this is a race you can go win, it's Daytona, right? Even in the virtual world, it's Daytona. So it's very easy to get amped up for these races, get hyped up, get excited, have a little extra pep in your step when you fire up the computer that night. And then, that just makes it, like you say, all the more frustrating when you're one of these guys that is getting lapped here with 29 laps to go.
Right. And nothing you can do about it, right? It was, for a lot of these guys, it was a wreck out of their control. Ethan Stanley was minding his own business in third place and got run into by Chad Frankenfield, and that was it, right? Jesse Racimus sucked into the wreck that he had no part of making. And sometimes you can be in the right spot at the right time and still end up in the wreck. And I think that's Ethan Stanley's race tonight is a very good example of that. He tried to be, like you said, in front of the wreck, and it just didn't matter. The wreck found him.
Right. And certainly I've been on both sides of that. I mean, earlier this season, our Grand National Series opener at Daytona, I caused the wreck that ruined a bunch of people's, start to the season. You wait all off season to get a chance to go racing, and then you're in a wreck that you had nothing to do with. A couple of seasons ago in the Truck Series here, I got wrecked on lap 9 by somebody forcing it 3 wide for 20th in the Truck Series. Oh!
I saw it. Who'd we lose?
Oh
no, Robin's gone.
Let's see if we get him back. If it's gone this long, it's not promising.
If he comes back, he's coming back right in the middle of the pack. He was running in fourth place right behind Chris Wright on the top. Clark has filled that hole.
I have a feeling we will see shortly the automated message from iRacing that Josh Robin has disconnected due to packet loss.
Anytime now.
Anytime now. He hasn't come back, so there's only...
There it is.
There it is. There
Yep.
it is. That's
Robin
what
out.
a heartbreaker for him.
Call it a motor failure, if you will, a computer failure in this case. We've seen it already a couple of times this season, especially for Jonathan Cutlip and a few others, but a tough break for one of the cars that was running well. That was Josh Robin tonight. You and I both inhaled right as Robin disconnected when Ryan Schultz came up the racetrack, and I don't know who he was running into. He ran into somebody. Chad Frankenfield just got a piece of the wall.
And that's about as heart in your throat as it can get if you're one of these cars out here when you're in these tight packs and the guy in front of you vanishes like that. Because like you say, this was obviously not a great outcome for Robin, but for the rest of the field, that was the best case scenario, that he just didn't come back. It's entirely possible he comes back and somebody is literally inside his race car or hooking him in the right rear, whatever the case may be, and then we've wrecked 30 cars in turn one.
Right. But it could have been much more disastrous than it was. Robin has reconnected to the service, going to try and get back in this race.
And one note on that front, we've mentioned a 6-lap down rule a few times. There is an allowance, so to speak. Once he gets back in and he's able to get back on track, race control, make a note however many laps down he is at that point, and will not count those laps towards these 6 laps. Obviously, it's got to be hard for him to make up a lap or two, get back on the lead lap and contend for the race per se, but at least it won't be he won't have to worry about these counting towards following 6 laps down. And his car should still be intact, so he should be able, as long as he can get to the pack, to hang around.
Right. Fortunately for Robin, he's not running for a championship, and it didn't happen quick enough for him to get back into it. I don't think Ethan Stanley last week disconnected from the server and then won the race, right? So obviously not enough time for Robin to do that in 25 laps.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I'll play devil's advocate for you. It's been pretty clean tonight, but if it gets wrecky, if he's able to get back in even 2 laps down, take a wave around, because it's going to automatically give him 4 freshies when he rejoins, all right? Get the free pass to next caution. You only need 2 cautions to get back in this thing if you're only 2 laps down for him.
He's coming up on getting 3 down, though. I don't think he's back in the race yet.
That's pushing it. If
he is 3 down on the track now.
Okay, that makes it a little bit more challenging. But I'm not gonna say he's out of the running yet, because tire wear isn't a huge deal. He can take some weight rounds. Oh!
Just Story got into Dusty Dewar on corner exit while they're trying to get around Casey Hatch and Michael Goodman. The pack does stream by, but Tate Lytle's had enough of riding behind Chad Frankenfield's somewhat damaged car. The Pro Edge Toyotas have finally made their move. Here comes Tate Lytle and Ethan Burrell.
It's about to be 4 for Josh. I think it might be done.
Yeah, it's Robbins. I think his night is over. Unfortunate, but he's going to stay out there. He's going to persevere. You love to see it.
Oh, see that little wiggle there from Tate Lytle. I mean, we're getting to the point now where even the bump drafts, the push coming in the corner, which the next-gen car a little more tolerant than most of the stock cars on the service, and you've even seen that in real life some. But it's still a very fine line when you start giving those pushes while the car is loaded up in the middle of the corner.
Right. Tate Lytle, consummate professional, very, very good at holding that car steady for Ethan Burrell. Those guys have worked together a lot. They're very used to working with one another. No problems on the connection. But what we've seen, right? Josh Adams got into to Chad Frankenfield when the car gets light on corner exit. That's when you spin the car out. It's not in the dead center of the corner. It's when that banking starts to transition. All of a sudden, the car gets turned light on you and turns sideways.
I mean, how many times have we seen it either out of turn 4, out of turn 2? It may not even be a guy trying to push, right? It's just, like you mentioned, the car gets loose on corner exit, and he just loses the slightest bit of momentum, and the car behind doesn't have time to react. That's all it takes to undo everything.
We just saw the big stack up 4 or 5 cars back on that outside lane. Tate Lytle, Josh Adams got a Tate Lytle, but did not get him going very quickly. And Clark ran in the back of Wright. Frankenfield ran in the back of Clark. Those guys stayed steady, but all it takes is one of those pushes in that accordion to not be dead square, and all of a sudden we're wrecking. Here comes Adams, down to the inside.
Chris Wright pushing Josh Adams. Got to try to get out front here with 20 laps to go.
Worth noting that Tate Lytle has a teammate there on that outside lane. That's Josh Clark in the 28 car. He's been up front this whole run, has Josh Clark. And his number is white on the pylon. He does not have a chance to race in the playoffs, even if he wins tonight. But those Pro Edge cars starting to find each other here, the remaining ones, because David Tooker is, I believe, still on vacation from suspension. And we've got some cars pitting this time.
And we'll see how these pit stops shake out. Indeed, lots of voice communication. You see those cars bailing below the yellow line. Josh Adams, Tyler Fode, Scott Crump, Ethan Stanley sailing it in. I don't know if he made it. I'm going to have to look.
There's no way Stanley made it without getting black flagged, right?
I do not see a black flag.
Wow. That was a monster pit entry by Ethan Stanley. Too bad he's a lap down for that not to have actually picked him up anything. Monster pit road entry by Ethan Stanley. A big pack came down this time. I think that the pack that came down pit road is certainly going to be the one that gets a bigger jump than the group that has stayed out here.
And that's one thing that I talk about. Every super speedway race is different. We've seen some packages where you only want 2 or 3 to come down pit road. You don't want to be in a big pack. You get checked up too much on pit road. This package, it seems like you want as many cars as possible so that you can get grouped together and punch the biggest hole once you get back on track.
Right, and you don't want to be what Johnny Thomas just did. Although Johnny is going to lead the lap. And that is 5 bonus points for a guy that is currently in the yellow. He is going to have a chance to point his way in. He's got a pretty sizable gap, but...
You showed your age there, David. I promise it's not 5 bonus points.
Yeah, that's true. It's 1 bonus point, but it is the bonus point for leading a lap. And Johnny is, he's on the cusp of being able to lock himself in. It would take some Herculean effort from some guys that are not having that great of a night right now. And, I think coming in last, he's going to end up off the back of the pack as he pits with the shift drivers, Gavin Hibbs, Nicky Delicato, Ty McIntosh in front of him.
He would have lost a ton of time that lap on his own on this in lap, and it's probably got to reflect on where he comes out as this pack flies by at full speed.
Yep.
Fortunately, yep.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, it strung out a little bit. He might be able to catch some fragment of this pack, but we'll see how it shakes out. Now, I'm trying to deduce here is what is Personette? Personette is a lap down, but I believe
this group here is the de facto lead. Ethan Burrell was in it. Chris Wright just took it. They are going to go around this group of 3. This is the current leaders, but there go the real leaders.
There you go.
Right there. Oh, they're wrecking.
Oh no!
Personette into Cutlip. That's not good for the points. Jonathan Cutlip. Oh, Gable got clipped again. Chad's in the grass. I don't think Personette held the brakes there.
Well, now this has got to really shake this up. I'm not sure.
You know who really benefited from this? Johnny Thomas.
Oh, for sure. That bailed him out significantly.
Oh, Ethan Burrell is the one who I think kind of ends up causing this. Personette
jumps
to the middle. Burrell goes to the middle above him, and they're 4 wide.
Yeah, definitely an awkward moment there as the cars were. See, I think part of it too is who is that? Ty McIntosh that isn't really holding the yellow line. It kind of, I think the 18 might have even checked up a little bit. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Eh. Not a lot of good things happened right here. Yeah, because you've
No.
got it. Those two shift cars are not. I think that woed up the 18 because the 10 drifted up, the 35 drifted up. The 18 was kind of in a spot. Ethan probably wasn't expecting a checkup at that point. Ugh.
Tough. And it all happened very quick. The shift car's not obviously up to full song, right? But they're also not on the bottom here, and I don't know, maybe Ty and Nick, without the use of the mirror, or not used, but like without the ability to see in the mirror, all they saw was the car behind. They didn't know the pack was running up on them so quickly.
No, 100%, and that's a tough one because I just yeah, I think especially right here.
Yeah, and then
Maybe
yeah.
I don't know if they're thinking maybe they need to get up and give up the bottom. I don't know. I'm a little. I don't want to say dumbfounded. That makes it sound like I'm outraged or something. But I feel like everybody involved would have been expecting the shift guys to be on the closer to the yellow line there on pit exit.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I also think the damage incurred in this was not as bad as initially thought. Cutlips got a little damage, but that car doesn't look too worse for wear. Wadsworth got hit. He's still on the racetrack. There was not a meatball flag for anybody but maybe Personet, who has disconnected from the server. Burrell's taken to pit road, but Cutlip's remaining out there. So, I mean, for a guy who's currently needing the points, he's kind of just got to go with it and hope that car is not too damaged. I will say that was a pretty big caution flag for Johnny Thomas,
Yes.
who was way off the back of this, ended up missing it. Big caution flag for Jordan Owen.
I'll do you one better. Not only did he end up, not. I mean, the way that caution fell, all right. Not all of the cars that were at full song had passed him yet. He doesn't. Not only does he get to catch up to the pack, he's got to restart 17th instead of falling back. I mean, if that had stayed green, he would have fallen to probably last car on the lead lap, which would have put him 27th, 28th. That's a huge break for Johnny Thomas.
Yeah, and I think Johnny maybe put a little more fuel in. He should have been on the back bumper of the shift cars, but he wasn't. He was way off the back of them. So, yeah, it's going to work out for Johnny. It's going to work out for a lot of these guys that have been kind of saving their stuff and hanging out at the back of the field.
Maybe a good thing he wasn't on the tail of the shift cars.
Mm-hmm. Looking at that, absolutely. And ultimately, right, it's going to keep him further back. It might be a chance to avoid some further carnage here. But with 14 laps to go, I envision things are about to get very wild.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, we've talked about it all night. Cutoff race, playoff implications. Who's going to make their way in? You see the color coding on the side. Chris Wright, really, truly, I mean, yeah, he's not going to point his way in. He needs a win. So he's got to be racing for that win. Scott Crump, probably in a decent spot points-wise, but he can't afford to give up too many points either. He wants to be up front. Ty McIntosh needs a win. Justin Wadsworth is locked in, so go for the win. Nick and Delicato, you're locked in. Go for the win. Tate Lytle, technically he's not locked in, but he is locked into the top 25, right? So for all intents and purposes, he's locked in with his win earlier this season. Jonathan Cutlip, all but locked in. Michael Hossack needs to get up there. That's a lot of different agendas here.
Right, and to note as we come to the restart here, it's orange does not mean win and locked in. Orange means win and you might get in. Green flag is out.
Win and be in the top 25 in points, which for most of those guys that we still have, a win would get them into the top 25 if they're not already.
Gotcha. Up front, Chris Wright dives down in front of Josh Adams to cover him off. Ty McIntosh rocks to the back bumper of Tyler Fode, gives him a really big push. And it's McIntosh into Fode, into Josh Adams, working the top lane. Scott Crump to the back bumper of Chris Wright on the bottom. They are too wide for the lead to give it to the outside. And Josh Adams with Tyler Fode and Ty McIntosh.
Probably the one question mark as far as that top 25 math goes. I would want to wait until we get an update if Ty McIntosh wins this race, but I feel like that would be enough to get him into the top 25, but we'll see. First things first, he's got to win the race. Right now he's in third. He's got a teammate up there too, Nick Indelicato, who is locked into the playoff field. So should Nick Indelicato be feeling generous as Chad Frankenfield is hammering the back bumper of the 0-1 of Ryan Gable, if Nick is feeling generous and trying to help work that teamwork, try to get Ty into the playoffs and maybe kick out one of his bigger competitors, that would be the key to Ty McIntosh's playoff berth. But the damage on the 5 of Jonathan Cutlip is apparent. He is falling like a rock in the middle of the field right now. That car is damaged. Cutlip probably should have come to pit road and fixed it. And you can see how it was stacking up the field as they went down the backstretch.
Oh, Gable sideways again.
Definitely a sketchy moment there between Gable and Dustin Dewar.
Dusty to the back bumper of Gable, so they'll get a chance to work together again. Chad Frankenfield right up here in the top 5 in the mix. Chad can point his way into this top 14 with the problems that Fortner has had, the problems that Trey Holmes has had. There is definitely a spot available in this top 14 if you can point your way in and we get a winner like Josh Adams or Tyler Fode. So Chad Frankenfield needs to finish up here where he's running. He's got the push.
I don't think that's what Chad's thinking about at all. I guarantee you the only thing he wants is to win and remove all doubt. And we've talked about how long it's been since he won it. He's won in the Cup Series. We've talked about the struggles the last few weeks here in the Cup Series to drop him from at one point what was pretty securely in the playoff chase to now being almost in a win-and-you're-in situation. I guarantee you the only thing on his mind is getting that 15 car out front. But now he's stuck outside 3 wide.
And now it's not going to happen. Chris Wright to the bottom. Now Chad's got help from Tate Lytle up top. The front 7 or so absolutely loving this. Mark Rabilis goes by. Ryan Schultz goes by. Corey Abbott's back in the lead lap. He's working by to the inside. They're 3 wide in the middle of the pack. Up front, single file. Josh Adams, Tyler Fode, Ty McIntosh, Nick Indelicato. That did not work for Chris Wright. He is falling fast.
Meanwhile, back up front. Oh, here, look at this. That's Justin Wadsworth jumping to the outside. Not a name we've necessarily talked about as much tonight, but one of those guys locked into the playoffs. All he wants to do is try and get that first. Oh, hit check.
Oh, Chad into Mark Rabilis. They're going to wreck hard in turn 3. Big wreck.
That is a huge
Jordan
wreck.
Owens is in it. Brent Jones is going to get a little piece. Crump's got big damage. Burrell is around. Chris Wright made it. Chris Wright's got some damage. Seth Rawls was involved. Josh Clark was involved. Big incident here, and it started when the Nick Indelicato and Ty McIntosh moved up. It looked like Indelicato was not clear on Wadsworth. I don't know, he was clear on Wadsworth. Just Wadsworth got into him and got squirrely.
He was clear, but that run was too strong for that block, and no chance for, especially with the push coming from behind from Scott Crump, no chance Justin Wadsworth was not going to run into the back of the 10 car there, and that just triggers this entire melee. That's got to cause a lot of frustration within the field.
Yeah, I think so. Late block Big run, nowhere for Wadsworth to go. And you can see the carnage it unleashes behind. Wadsworth ends up making it through without damage, but I guess it's when Crump and Chad kind of wind up 3 wide that Crump gets hooked down into Rabilis. And then this is the carnage. Mark Rabilis had just worked his way up into the top 5. You see Ethan Burrell get some big damage there. Crump with big damage. Owens is going to get turned. Wright gets damage. Ethan Stanley sneaks by on the bottom. Racema sneaks by. Might need to go on board with both of those cars. See if we can go for a further up view. I guess we're probably watching to make sure that we properly call this one.
He's already calling it, and it sounds like the tally will go to the 10 car.
Yeah. Like the overview from like above Ethan Burrell, maybe.
After we come out of this replay, I would like to take a chance to look at obviously we can't show in real time the updated points, but what the points we had coming into the evening and kind of overview what we're looking at after this wreck.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one. Oh, Johnny Thomas ended up getting spun around in this. He was at the very bottom of your screen. Just trying to cover all the guys that were getting involved in this and that are in that playoff hunt.
For sure.
There were a lot of them.
So we'll take a look at, again, unfortunately we don't have the ability to show live updated point standings, but here's what we had going into the night in that bubble battle. Basically anyone into yellow was not mathematically locked in. Cutlip is 24th currently. Tooker is not here tonight. Johnny Thomas is currently in the interview room. He's sitting on pit road. Scott Crump was in that wreck. He's sitting on pit road. Jordan Owens
Was in the wreck.
Was also in the wreck, but he is back on track. Tate Lytle, again, he has the win, so I get he's in yellow, but for all intents and purposes, he is locked in. He is still on track. Trey Holmes, unfortunately, has been out for some time, so I am hard-pressed to believe he'll be able to make the playoffs. Fortner was also in that wreck. Schold is in 7th right now.
He's looking good.
Nick Massey has been out for some time, if I remember correct. Yeah, he's in 36, 37, something like that. Chad Frankenfield is on track. He's been able to get... Nope, I clicked on the wrong name. Chad is on track, but I clicked... Yeah, so he might be able to salvage something, but especially with as far down as he is, he kind of needed the win.
It's worth noting that Tate Lytle's win eligibility in the playoffs was stripped because he missed too many races. So he had to point his way in. But he's not as damaged as others.
Chad's spreadsheet is wrong, which doesn't surprise me. I've been saying the wrong thing all night because I can't read Chad's mind, which is tough.
Classic. Johnny Thomas, it's David in the booth. You on track yet? How bad's the 83 car?
83 car's toast. Seems like anytime I get in an accident, one of these things, it automatically backfires and the car's dead. So, not the way we wanted to end it, but we should probably get in the playoffs. We had a nice gap. Had fun tonight, but unfortunate, man. These guys are just going a little crazy there. Delicato threw a bad block and wrecked the entire field. So disappointing, but probably my best run these next gen cars, man. This plate package ain't for me. I prefer the days of old with this stuff. So I'm disappointed. It kind of sucks, but hey, it happens.
Any shout outs for us here before we send you off, Johnny?
Yeah, you guys are going green. Just Belly Up Sports, man. You guys for putting on these shows. Nobody would be watching if it wasn't for you. So thank you, and hopefully the race is pretty good. Go Hanshaw.
We appreciate it, buddy. Good luck in the rest of the way. Hope you make the playoffs.
Yep.
It's our guy, Johnny Thomas. And Josh Adams is going to come back and take the green flag up ahead of Tyler Fode. Ty McIntosh working the back bumper of that 40 car. He's been glued to it since the last restart effectively. Michael Hosek and Indelicato side by side. Who is the first car to move to the top? I think it's probably going to be that 35 car to get in front of his teammate.
That seems like a likely suspect, but it hasn't happened yet, and he's running out of...
Here he goes.
There it goes.
It's a little early. Indelicato didn't have the run. Wadsworth was on the back bumper of the 10, but it wasn't a great push. It's there now, though.
Early to keep Hosek from doing it, though.
Yeah, it was the right move. It wasn't perfectly timed, but it was the right move. 5 laps to go, coming to 4 to go. Up top goes Fode, into Fode goes McIntosh. Sideways, and Fode hangs onto it. They'll get to 4 to go, green.
And for a second there, I thought maybe the 24 had made the best move of all by not making a move, because he was sitting pretty on the low side while they were all jacked up and out of shape up top, but they get sorted out. Adams leading the way.
Who goes to the bottom first? It's Ty McIntosh, driver who needs a win. He's got a team car to help him. They're sideways in the middle of the pack. Owens is on the apron. Everybody saves it. Ty McIntosh working the bottom. Adams working the top with Tyler Fode and Justin Wadsworth.
It'll be 3 laps to go this time. Teammates hooked up on the bottom.
Yep, teammates hooked on the bottom, teammates hooked up on the top. Adams working with those Lake Norman cars. Call him a Lake Norman teammate. 3 laps to go this time. And Nick Indelicato's going to have to shove the life out of Ty McIntosh, and they're doing it on the bottom. Here come the shift cars. Ty blocked Adams off. That's not going to work.
Oh!
And outside's where Ty's got to be.
Boy, I just don't know if this is going to work out. Obviously, they're trying to control both lanes here, but especially after that last incident, I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of patience for those shift cars.
Yeah, Nick Indelicato on the bottom, not getting any sort of push by Michael Hosek. Up front, it's Josh Adams and Ty McIntosh, and as soon as Adams is clear of the bottom, I have to envision that 22 car is going to jump to the bottom and get around this 35, and that'll probably send the 35 going to the back. They have cleared the bottom by a ton. Wadsworth clear, Wright clear. Ty McIntosh out in front. Adams probably biding his time, waiting to make his move.
Of course, Ty McIntosh, one of those drivers, we're not sure if he's going to be able to get top 25 in points, but he needs the win. He's got to at least win the race and hope the points fall his way. A lot of cars between him and 25th.
Here he comes.
We're involved in a wreck.
And McIntosh kind of a sitting duck right there. Not much he could do. He's going to have to hope somebody gets in behind him and shoves him back to the lead. Jess Story's the car, but he's going to get turned by Jonathan Cutlip.
The yellow comes out before they get to the line. We're not done.
We are not done yet. Overtime at Daytona. Josh Adams will be your leader. And that all started because what can McIntosh do right there? I mean, it got hung out for the lead going into turn 3, and Jess Story's getting pushed by Jonathan Cutlip coming up on a car that's 10 miles an hour slower.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a similar situation to what we saw last time. It just too much momentum. I mean, it's not like Ty was just there. There wasn't a block or anything.
Right.
And but just the train had too much momentum when they caught that car of Ty McIntosh that had just been hung out to dry on the outside.
Nowhere for Jess Story to go ultimately, and Jonathan Cutlip gives him a sideways push. Gavin Hibbs, another one getting involved here. Did Hibbs and Cutlip end up wrecking? I don't think so. I think it was really just Jess Story. I think Ray Bracey got in the back of Jordan Owens. Both of those cars end up staying straight and remain on the lead lap. Both of them have a little bit of damage from running in the back of somebody and checking up, but I think that's fine. I don't think that's going to matter here with 2 laps to go.
Racing incident, the call from race control. Now, to overview for any, again, I feel like we go over this a fair amount, but you never know when there's a new viewer here on the Elite Racing Network, and there are some differences with iRacing versus real life, so let's go over the overtime procedure here. in iRacing, it is green, white, checkered restart here now that we've gone past the regulation distance. Under Elite Rules, 3 attempts at a green, white, checkered finish. Now, how it works in iRacing, if the caution comes out before they get to the white flag, we'll try again, unless we exhaust our 3 green, white, checkered attempts. Once the white flag comes out, it's a race back to the checkered flag. The caution cannot fall at any point once the white flag is out. You're not going to see a situation where the field is frozen like you see in real life. It will be a race back to the start-finish line if the white flag comes out.
Yep. And so if the white flag comes out, all bets are off. You got to hammer down and go. So the race winner crosses the start-finish line, right? There's no safety implications in iRacing. So
no. We are not sending the AMR safety team out there to scrape anybody off the catch fence while the leaders are racing to the checkered flag.
Fortunately enough, right? But we might yet see that. Let's go over the top group here, because we've got a few names that I think we should touch on while they're still present and not flipping into the catch fence. Josh Adams, the race leader, he's been up front all night. He's really worked well with Tyler Fode, who's running second. Both of those cars have been up front all night. Justin Wadsworth is hunting his first career win. He is locked into the playoffs, so that 6 car can take all the risks. Chris Wright needs a win. He's not going to point his way in to the playoffs, so he's got to go out here and win. Dusty Dewar cannot make his way in, but boy, Dusty sure would like to go out and get his first Elite Cup Series win. He's been a veteran of the series for a really long time. Then there's the 2 Ships cars. We've discussed them at length, but behind them is Michael Hosak there in 8th place, who, like Ty McIntosh, needs to win this race. Behind him is Gavin Hibbs. We have discussed at length Gavin Hibbs's tumultuous season, culminating in a number of very close second, third place finishes, a number of wrecks late in the race. He's hunting his first win of the year that would lock him into the playoffs. Jonathan Cutlip is probably going to make it the playoffs on points, but he's also hunting that win, right? And that's a guy who's been through some serious misfortune this year. And behind him, a number of pretty important names for the playoff bubble. Ryan Schultz, who absolutely is probably pointed his way in over Trey Holmes. That's probably going to be the only change unless we get one of those winners that needs to lock themselves in. And then behind him is Jordan Owens, who needed to have a good points night, and it looks like that 16 car is clean enough to make it to the end of this race. If he can just finish right where he is right now, Jordan Owens will be in the playoffs after a very consistent and very strong season. Just back there is Justin Fortner, and he's maybe the wild card in this, because can Fortner get enough points to knock out Scott Crump? That's probably my question at this point.
Well, the thing to remember on that front, if we do get one of these multi-car pileups that sometimes happen, certainly he's not in that position now, but remember, Fortner was ahead of Schultz coming into the night. And he's still out there. Point. They was by 1 point. He's still out there. So if that wreck happens and Schultz gets collected and Fortner doesn't, we could be having a completely different playoff conversation.
That's your playoff outline. Those are the guys that are kind of remaining. 2 laps to go. Off turn 4 here. These guys will fire it up for overtime number 1. Josh Adams, Tyler Fode, the front row, Chris Wright, Justin Wadsworth, the second row. Green flag is out. Adams and Fode on the loud pedal, but it's going to be that outside line with a really big run. Chris Wright to the back bumper of Josh Adams, and Chris Wright is in that must-win spot to move on in this playoff.
Outside line gets to jump, and there you see Adams, Wright, jump down to the bottom. That cuts off Fode for now. And Delicato leading the outside. Michael Hosak looking to race his way in. We're wrecking.
Wrecking big. Racy around. He's going to save it. Looks like everybody got pretty well saved. It's just Brent Jones currently sideways on the back straightaway. Wadsworth was the first car out of shape, but it was a bad push by Dusty Dewar that got him out of sorts there on that bottom lane.
Justin Wadsworth has a meatball.
Did he catch Hosak in this is the big question. I believe he did. There's the bump and then the hook. And he gets Hosack and spins him out. So, yes. Gold is going to be able to stay straight and make it through. Jordan Owens made it through.
Taking another look here. Right there's that trouble spot we already talked about tonight. The cars get just so light out of turn 2. You saw some of that dancing around and then ultimately the contact.
Brent got turned by, it looks like Chad late in that one.
Now, let's see. We'll get another look here. This is going to be the contact between Chad Frankenfield and Brent Jones.
Chad's already made a move to the outside as that wreck starts. Brent gets into Ray. Looks like Ray gets into Ty. Everybody happens there. And then Chad goes around the spinning Wadsworth, but into Brent on his way by. Looked like there was not going to be a spin there, and the netcode kind of hopped Brent's car up and spun it around.
There's the call, racing incident, which I agree with there.
Ultimately a fine call in that instance, though at some point you do have to not just be slamming the door of the 5th car back. It is 2 laps to go, so understandable that tensions are ratcheted up here, but that was a pretty close call for a lot of our guys that are kind of hunting that chase spot. Obviously, Michael Hosack now dropping back into the field a little bit, but Ryan Schold cut sideways. He ends up avoiding it. He's 10th. Jordan Owens is 12th. Justin Fortner will be 15th. McIntosh still in the hunt. Hibbs up to 5th. And he'll restart behind teammate Nick Indelicato. Boy, the Gavin Hibbs win after all that's happened. I wish we had a review that we could cut to for Hibbs' season. It's pretty extraordinary. He wrecked out of the lead at Bristol with like 20 laps to go and a 500 lapper from the lead with a chance to win that one, and then at Martinsville later didn't get enough green flag laps to be able to go around Tate Lytle and finish second in that one.
Man, I know they're all the same length, but once you get to the end of this race and nobody's pitting or anything like that, and the cards are on the table, these green-white checkered cautions feel like an eternity.
I'm sure they even feel more like an eternity for Josh Adams.
Oh, for sure.
Leading this race, he had the lead. he knows. And now all you can do if you're Josh Adams is, well, what you're talking about. Where do I go on this restart? Who do I want behind me? Do I want Tyler Fode? Do I want Nick Indelicato? Right, and he's obviously going to work with Chris Wright. Those guys are buddies. Try to win this thing, but he and Fode have worked so well together tonight. That seems like a natural combination.
And the other thing too that sometimes comes up in these situations, I think back to my win in the truck series at Talladega a few seasons ago. I don't know if there's anybody who really fits this boat except for I don't even think that's the case, but maybe for somebody like for Fode, maybe there's a part of him that wants to see, if he can't win, Josh Adams is the best case scenario for him, because maybe that helps not put a new winner in that could knock somebody like Scott Crump out. Like, I'm not sure on the math on that, but that's one of those things that I guarantee you they're thinking about going into this restart.
The tough part on that, and I see what you're saying. The tough part on that is that, one, we don't really know where Scott is in terms of points, and a new winner would
Right.
knock out Holmes and not Scott. Two is that Tyler Fode wants to win. He hadn't won all year. I don't think any scenario for Tyler Fode is good except for 40 car victory lane.
That is fair.
Pace car is off. Josh Adams to the restart here in overtime. Number 2, the 22 out in front of the 40. Chris Wright on the bottom. Help from Nick and Delicato. The inside line is going back though. It's going to be Fode, Dewar, McIntosh all clear. McIntosh into the back of Dewar. Who's going to cut to the bottom? It's probably going to be that 32 car, right? Go Dusty. See if you can't go down there and get you a win. Not yet. Everybody's just sitting on the top.
Somebody's got to make a move at some point. I bet it'll be that 32 car when it happens. Here
Nope,
we go. No!
It's Nick and Delicato down to the inside of Ryan Schold. Schold went to the bottom. He's not going to be able to do anything with that. It's Indelicato with help from Gable and Justin Fortner on the bottom. Up front, it's Adams, Fode, Dewar coming to the white flag. They're wrecking behind.
They're wrecking. Will the caution come out?
The caution is out before Adams got there.
Oh.
And we will get the full 3 green-white checkers.
Oh.
Mac, you sounded
And
French there.
There are some destroyed cars. Ray Bracey's car is going to be destroyed. Jess Story's car is destroyed. Tate Lytle's got a meatball, but he had one, I think, a while back. Leighton Norgard's got the meatball.
Let's see here. That's a tough one. I'd have to get another look at that. And poor Leighton Norgard. One thing for sure, he was an innocent bystander on this and almost got away from it. Let's see what happens here.
Evil goes to jump back to the top as they come down, and Story looks like he just figured Schold was up at the wall.
I think he was expecting a little more room from Schold there. That's a tough one.
And there's the contact that probably ends Tate Lytle's night. Oh, no, you know what? Here's the contact that ends Tate Lytle's night.
Yeah. And then Leighton's going to take a hard shot against the outside wall right in front of Chad Frankenfield.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I mean, you see immediately the damage to the left rear for Ray Bracey in that 7 car.
Bojo Pushkin's not going to be having any treats tonight, unfortunately.
Jesse Racimus.
Oh, who just hit Jess at the end there?
That was Racimus, I believe.
No, and Jesse Racimus will not defend. Nick and Delicato's on pit road. Is there some fuel concerns? Ty McIntosh's on pit road too.
Yeah, they were talking about it in driver chat.
So there have been too many laps, and the shift cars. The shift cars, definitely under-fueled. Oh, Racimus was already out of control by the time he got to Jess Story there, so that explains that. And the right front tire on the 70 car is no longer attached. So frustrating end to several nights. Tate Lytle now out of the race. Really only about 24-ish cars still in the lead lap.
So now, here's the other factor. We've gotten to this is going to be the final attempt. So if the caution comes out on the first lap this time, field freezes, whoever is out front at the time of the caution is your winner. So that also affects how you approach this restart. You want to be out front in case that caution comes out. But again, if they get to the white flag, it will be a race back to the line.
So you've got to be the leader. It is the story here. You can't wait. And Jess Story does get the tally for this one. Can't wait. You have to go get the lead. If you're Josh Adams or Tyler Fode, you want to get that good start. If you're Dusty Dewar or Jordan Owens is now 4th, by the way. You have to go and make your move, and you have to do it before that white flag hits. You've got to go. Because if the white flag hits and you are not the race leader, or if the white flag doesn't ever get a chance to unfurl because we wreck first, you never even had a chance.
Yeah, and that's, everybody's worst fear at this moment if they're not Josh Adams, right? You get a wreck on a restart, somebody misses a shift, somebody spins the tires, whatever the case may be, and you don't even get a chance to race for this.
Right. And Tyler Fode's been so close this season. Jordan Owens and Dusty Dewar have been so close a number of times in their Elite Cup Series careers. Neither one has gone to victory lane. Josh Adams has been close enough. Well, Josh Adams has several wins, including at Daytona in the Elite Cup Series. This is a gigantic moment for the Dusty Dewar and Jordan Owens fans. And Jordan's been sitting at the back. He has not been hunting the lead. He has not been pushing 100% like Josh Adams, Tyler Fode have all race long. There's going to be some guys coming, moving forward furiously from the back. And let's take a look at the replay of that incident at the end. Mike DeWalt got spun as they were checking up. Hosat goes around. What are we looking for here? We're just trying to figure out who caused this?
This came out simultaneously with the other one. So, trying to see if there was tally-worthy.
Looked like a bad push to a damaged car to me, but. Well, what is worth noting is the car at the front of this herd, the two cars at the front of this herd will restart 11th and 12th. That's Brent Jones and Ethan Stanley.
I think a little bit in that code, too.
Yeah.
Regardless, we're about to go back green.
We sure are. For the final time in this race. This race will be over at the conclusion with the next flag. Well, technically with two flags if the white flag hits, but either way. Josh Adams, Tyler Fode, Dusty Dewar, Jordan Owens, the top four. Green flag is out. Adams with a pretty big jump over Owens. And Schultz got to get to the back bumper of that 16 and keep him up there. Behind Dewar, it's Ryan Gable pushing to Tyler Fode and getting that 40 car ahead of the 22. Owens is to the back bumper of the 22, but it's a little too late.
Watch the 3 wide here. Chris Wright jumping to the top.
Dustin Dewar's got to go. He's got to make his move. He does it now. Dewar side drafts the 40 back, but that puts Tyler Fode in position with a teammate behind. Ryan Gable pushing Fode. Adams pushing Dewar. Adams is looking for a way around. Into turn 3, they wreck. They wreck big. It's going to be Tyler Fode.
Oh, that's the caution.
Tyler Fode will win at Daytona. First win of the season. Ryan Gable will finish second. It'll be Seth Rawls third. Dustin Dewar fourth. I think Jordan Owens will finish fifth. It'll either be him or Josh Adams.
And now we wait for the math.
And now we'll have to get the math going. Looks like the scoring will have Adams 5th, Owens 6th, Wright 7th, Brent Jones to finish 8th, Brian Schuld 9th, Justin Wadsworth 10th. We'll wait and see if those guys have to give any positions back, but that is now they cross for the white flag. And the small drought for Tyler Fode finally ends.
20th career Belly Up Sports Cup Series win for Tyler Fode. Adding to his all-time lead in the series.
He is the winningest driver in the series. Ryan Gable finished at second. It's been an interesting season for Gable. He's we talked about consistency. Gable has not had a terribly consistent season, but he has picked up a lot of bonus points when it counts, and that has worked into a very good position where he was locked into this. He's going to be able to get the second place finish tonight. We'll get to talk to Ryan Gable. And third will be Seth Rawls. Those will be our interviews. At the line there is the race win. Checkered flag is over. And the Numbers by Joe 250 is finally complete. It was really more like a 260. And so, yeah, let's take a look at the replay of that last incident. I believe because the middle was backing up, Stanley ended up getting into cut lip. Oh, no, it's because the 4 car goes up from the bottom.
Yeah, that's where it kind of starts. We'll have to get a closer look at the 4 of Ryan Schold there to see on the bottom, working around Gavin Hibbs. Ethan Stanley had made the move to the bottom. Ryan Schold, I don't think, was aware Ethan Stanley had filled that hole. Turns right immediately, makes contact with the 91 car.
Yeah, Schold just moved up. I'd probably give a tally to the 4 there, were I part of race control. Just a tough move. That'll be post race, and we'll get into interviews while race control sorts all that out. And I've got Seth Rawls in the waiting room, so let's bring him up, and we're gonna call it a racing incident. So there you go. Seth Rawls, is David in the booth? You got me, buddy?
Yeah, sir.
So I'd like to know how that happened. You know, you just kind of arrived in 4th there, right at the end, or in the top 5 right at the end, and wound up finishing 3rd. Take me through your night a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my goal tonight was just to front run. I think the rest of the guys on shift were with that too. Obviously went to the back for a little bit, but I like to think that I was pretty much up front for the whole race, like top 10, top 15 the whole race. So that last restart though was very stressful because I thought I was gonna run out of fuel. I had like 1.4 gallons left, so I made the decision between going to pit road or staying out, and I was like, Mama didn't raise no beep. So I sent it, but I mean, I would have loved to have a shot there at Foden Gavel, but I mean, obviously for the playoffs have been awesome, but obviously the story of the season to come up just short, I feel like, but yeah.
Getting down to that last restart, obviously, certainly would have loved to see that one race out. How frustrating is it to end up in a position like that and then on the 3rd green white checkered still have it end like that?
Yeah, exactly like you said. The 3rd runway checker really sucks. Like, come on, we're already like almost there, and just nothing cooked there. I don't even know where they wrecked on the back, which I think, right? So yeah, just tough. I mean, that's plate racing though. You kind of hope it played out a little bit cleaner, but honestly, like from my point of view, like I should have been wrecked at least 6-7 times. Just such bumper cars with this package, and like literally out of 2, you're just like slamming the guy in front of you, hoping that it hooks up and goes. So, like, I'm upset, obviously mad that I didn't win the race, but with the type of racing that is, like I can't be mad at it. You know what I mean? It's a luck of the draw, really.
Well, Seth, take us, to the rest of the season upcoming. Obviously, I don't think you're going to be racing for a championship, but you got some teammates up there, and what's your kind of plans going forward here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nick is obviously in the playoffs. I don't think Gavin made it, unfortunately. Like he had to must have been there. I know he was in the points bubble, but yeah, I mean, just the rest of the season for me, just gonna try to go out there, work on my craft. I feel like the season's been rough with Rex and just not the best luck, either of my own doing or others. But that's racing. I'm super excited about Mid Ohio next week. I love Mid Ohio. I love it in the B car. So hopefully, never in the Cup car, but hopefully it'll be fun. I love road courses, so that's always a blast. The next Talladega race obviously will be fun. But really just trying to work on my craft and other tracks. Yeah, I've been in the series for I think 2 seasons now, or 2 years, like 4 seasons. And just gotta keep on working my craft. I think obviously I don't have as much time as the other guys in here sometimes, but I like to think I'm not too bad, but definitely always room for improvement. And and looking forward to next year as well with Shift Esports and a lot of fun things coming, a lot of new things coming, and I'm hoping it will be a powerhouse next year, 2025.
And before we let you go, who do you have to thank on this podium finish tonight?
Yeah, gotta thank Shift Esports, all the help we got. I think it was great comms tonight between all of our guys, Nick, Ty, Gavin, even Matthew Bayuk, if anyone knows him. He was in the call helping us out, doing a little fuel strategy. But it was fun, obviously, always fun to have those guys on your team. We're relatively new to Elite, but like I said earlier, I want to be a powerhouse. I want to be a brand that everyone knows. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next year. Obviously, my sponsor, Tail Digital Solutions, marketing agency. I actually work for them, so reach out to me, reach out to Tail Digital. We can get you hooked up, social media, graphics, logos, you name it. As well as all our Shift Esports partners. There's a whole list of them. Check us out on Twitter at Shift Esports _. A lot of, like I said, a lot of cool things coming next year. A lot of announcements and partnerships that are in the works right now. So super hyped about that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Seth. Congrats on the 3rd place. We'll catch you next time, buddy.
See you guys.
There's Seth Rawls. Zach, you want to take the lead, interview your buddy Ryan Gable?
Who said he was my buddy?
Well, do you want to? Even if he's not.
Sure. Let's go. Now we'll speak with our 2nd place finisher, Ryan Gable. Ryan, Lake Norman 1-2. Sure, you would have liked to had a chance to race for the win there at the end, but overall have to be pretty happy with how the night went, I would think.
Yeah, I'm definitely good with it. I struggle to finish these plate races more often than not. Sometimes I sneak out top 10s, but I've never really been that far up at the very, very end. So it's good to be there. Yeah, if it went green, I guess I would have liked to see it go green to give Fody a run for my money, because we were both racing for nothing. We're already locked in and everything, just looking for a win. So we weren't going to play any sort of team games. I mean, I definitely helped him there on that last restart and pushed him, but I mean, I had no choice anyway. We were pinned on the bottom, and I was just hammering them out front, and we got lucky when the yellow came out there to bring her home 1-2. So definitely happy with it. And it was a lot of fun. I got in a couple wrecks there late and got all the damage fixed. I almost wasn't going to even bother. Like 3 laps to go, I came in and got the last minute and a half. And that was before the first green white checkered. So had a couple good restarts there at the end, cut through some traffic, missed some wrecks, and got up to the front. Got pretty lucky. But definitely was a lot of fun, and glad Fody got the win. He stole that half point from me too by like 1/1000th of a second.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was close between the two of us all night. I wasn't there all night. He was there all night. I was just there when it mattered in the middle and at the end, but came up short in both. But definitely I'll take it. I think that should put me 3rd in points or so. So definitely good consistent regular season.
Yeah, Ryan. I was going to ask you about the halfway point there, but I'll transition to asking you about your season. I'm pretty sure this is our first interview with you all year since Zach and I were in the booth.
Yes.
So in that case, we haven't talked to you at all, but you were locked in, right? You've accumulated a ton of points, and I know you and I have talked about this a little bit. How has that worked in terms of your strategy to go out there and get those stage points during these full distance races?
Yeah, that definitely was a lot of it. Like Daytona 500, I think I finished 3rd and 4th in the stages, and then I finished the race like 15th or something, 17th, like that. And then same with, so in that race, I still scored like well in the top 10 of points. Same with Darlington, I finished like 2nd and 5th or 6th or something in the stages, and then I think I wrecked out late in the race, finished 20th, but I still scored within the top 10 in points. And then where were we? Iowa, I think I finished 3rd in the stage and 10th in the race. So those stage points helped a lot, and just not having any terrible races helped a lot also. So definitely, the stage points was definitely a lot, and that gave me a huge advantage. And it's especially with these full distance races we do, where those stage points come into play so big. That's where I made sure to capitalize on those, knowing how important they are. And I'm glad that they are changing it next season to where every race has a halfway full top 10 stage, because it is a little funny how I've been on the short end of the stick more often than not the last couple seasons, where I'll get crappy finishes in the stages. In the long distance races, or miss a long distance race, or wreck out early or something like that, and that'll put me way behind just because of that fact. So I got lucky this year and had good runs in those stages. So yeah, definitely that played a large part in it, and just not having any horrible finishes that I can think of off the top of my head helped a lot. So yeah, that was definitely the key. Was let's see, only 2 finishes outside the top 20. One of them was that Darlington race where I got the stage point. So that's a pretty good consistent season, and that's what got me here.
Moving forward, next week we go road course racing. You don't hate that, Ryan. You've won a couple of times on the road courses here in the Cup Series. That has to give you a little bit of confidence going into the first round of playoffs, I would think.
Yes, definitely does. I'll tell you, Mid-Ohio, probably my least favorite road course out of all of them that stock cars run at in general, which is unfortunate. But the goal there will definitely be top 5 finish. And if I can get out of there with a top 5 or close to it with no mistakes, that'll put me in really good shape to hopefully squeeze out a decent finish at Kansas, and then be in a good enough spot at Talladega to be able to have some fun like I was able to tonight and not have to worry too much about points. But I remember last season I thought I was in that kind of spot, and I wrecked out on the last lap and finished 30-something and got knocked out by a point or something silly. So we'll see where I wind up going into Talladega. But getting through that first round is definitely the goal for the season. I think every season I've run except for last season, I've made the playoffs and made it through the first round and got knocked out of the second. So I'd like to improve on that. But then again, that's kind of my baseline. I guess get through that first round would be good. And I don't know what the cutoff or the point situation is. Actually, looks like Chad already reset it here, so I look like I'm entering 4th seed. But if that's correct, that's pretty good. Because I didn't know what I'd get for playoff points, because I didn't win any stages, and I don't think I won any stages. I came close a couple times, and I didn't win any races. So I'm just getting the points based on finishing 3rd in the regular season. So yeah, definitely good regular season. 3rd, I think, is the best I've ever finished in it. So hopefully it carries me through here this first round of the playoffs at least, and hopefully more than that too.
Well, Ryan, any shout outs for us here before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, definitely shout out to the Lake Norman boys. I think we made it all into the playoffs. Let me make sure
It
I'm
looks
right.
that way.
Yeah,
We got it
Crump
up
was
on the
close.
screen.
Yeah, Crump was close. Looks like he snuck in. Schultz snuck. All right, interesting. Yeah, we all snuck in, so that's good. I mean, Stanley and Fody had really good seasons, especially Stanley's been on fire. Me and Wadsworth have been really consistent, which has helped us out a ton. And Crump's had a rough season, but he has snuck his way in, which is good. So if the usual speed that he's got comes out here in this playoff, we'll all be forces to be reckoned with. So. And obviously me and Fody worked well together at the end of that one tonight, so glad he got the win, and that worked out real well for the team. Thanks to you guys up here in the booth, put on the broadcast like usual, of course, and thanks to Chad for running the league and everything, even though he didn't make no playoffs, it doesn't look like, which is oh shucks, that's too bad. But you know what? That's all right. That's all right.
He's already out of the playoffs, Ryan. You don't have to
I
kick him
know.
while he's down.
And Chad's another one where he's real good. He really is, and I can't believe it's been so long since he's won something, and he got straight up screwed a couple times this season. So it's part of it. But anyway, yes, it's been a good season.
Did you
Thanks,
forget
Chad.
anybody to thank, Ryan?
No, Dave Huck for being on the hood of this beautiful gold and black number 01 Chevrolet.
There you
Of
go.
course. I'm glad I got you in here at least once this season. Hopefully we get another podium or 2 or more by the time this is over. But been a good consistent season. If we can improve just a little bit more and get more of these podiums, that'd be a good chance. Maybe we sneak a championship out of this. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, good luck, Ryan. Hopefully we get to talk to you in the next couple of weeks, so maybe you can have your interview just a little bit shorter, so we don't have to sum your whole season up.
Oh, that's all right.
Come back and talk to us quicker.
Yeah,
but,
right. No. Thank you.
But thanks, Ryan. Have a good one.
Yep.
And David, while you're grabbing Tyler Fody, of course, you see the names on the screen, but just to kind of paint the picture here, Ryan Schuld ended up 13th in the points. Tate Lytle 14th. Justin Fortner was 15th, 7 points short of Tate Lytle's total. And Trey Holmes fell to 16th. He was another, it looks like 11 points behind Fortner. Obviously, just a devastating night for him. So that's kind of the playoff picture as it settled out. Obviously, the reseed into a little bit different order than what you see on the screen with the playoff points, like Ryan was talking about. He'll be the 4th seed. No surprise here. Ethan Stanley will carry the points lead into the playoffs.
Absolutely. So let's bring up what will be, I think, the 2nd seed once
You'd
all
be
is said
correct.
and done.
You would be correct.
The 2nd seed, Tyler Fody. And Tyler, I think we've talked to you just about every single week. But finally, it is for a race victory.
Yes, sir.
So, you were up front all night long tonight. I know that's your plan at every plate race, but, how did it work out with such a kind of a difficult qualifying effort?
Yeah, this qualifying deal sucks, but that's honestly probably the farthest back I started, so it was a little different than what I'm used to, but just found a couple cars to trust and shot the middle a few times and got where we needed to be. And yeah, just kind of maintained up there, made a couple friends, and we were rolling good.
I don't think I had realized that we had talked about the Wednesday night searching for a win, but it wasn't until I was sitting on pit road looking at my mangled heap of junk at North Wilkesboro. I didn't realize you hadn't won on Monday nights either. And now you've knocked out both of them this week. I mean, you have to feel pretty good about how the week's gone going into the playoffs in the regular season finale on Monday night.
Yeah, definitely left it later than I wanted to. Tired of hearing of it every week, pretty much. So yeah, no, it's just a couple good tracks for me lined up, and just executed. So really happy to be done with that. Got a ton of points too that I needed because I was going to be going in with nothing pretty much had this not happened.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking, that halfway point, you and your teammate were door banging to the line, and we kind of realized it only coming off of turn 4, and I swear I called it for Gable. How the heck did you manage to pull that point out?
Yeah, well, I knew. So, I mean, obviously, halfway through the race, I'm still racing for the regular season title to try and get as many playoff points as I can just from that alone. But Stanley and I were pretty close at that point. So, yeah, and I had no wins, so I needed really just every point possible. And yeah, I kind of got Gavel. I knew the whole lap leading up to it that I was going to try and do that. I don't think Gavel knew until the last second, but yeah, I just kind of pushed him out, got a little gap, and then made the move. Almost left it too late, though. I think Gavel said it was like 1,000th coming to the line, but yeah, that's what that was all about.
Well, moving forward, obviously Mid-Ohio next week, you're another one of those guys who tends to run pretty well at the road courses. How do you feel kicking off the playoffs there?
Well, I don't like that track at all, but it's one of my.
Brian said the same thing. What's the deal?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just a weird track that I don't know why we're there. But with all that being said, I've run that track in so many different series, and it's honestly in my top 2 statistically best road courses. I don't know how, but I'm not going to like it, but I feel like we might have a good shot to get a good result. So I don't know.
Yeah, the road course should be a bit of a wild card for everybody behind that 91 car. So we'll see if you can go take out your teammate next week.
Yeah.
He's going to be tough. But you got any shout outs for us here before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, obviously the Lake Norman guys. We're all running good tonight. Couple wrecks there at the end. Got some guys out of it. Was able to just get Scott into the playoffs at the end there. So cool to have everyone in. Big shout out to Gavel, obviously. Without his shot there at the end, would not have gotten clear a Dewar and a 1-2. It's just nice to remind everyone that we can still do this around super speedways. So 1-2 there for the team is always awesome. John Cutlip for painting all of our stuff. I said it on Monday. I've been really wanting to get one of his paints into victory lane, and we've done that twice now this week. So shout out to him. Shout out to you guys for putting on this broadcast. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back here talking to y'all next week.
Alrighty, Tyler. Well, congratulations on the race win finally in this series. We'll stop nagging you about it, and hopefully we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
As race winner Tyler Fody, and number 2 in the playoffs, and the field is set. It's on your screen. It's been on your screen for a few minutes now, and ultimately the only change other than coming into the night was Ryan Schold bypassing Trey Holmes. So Jordan Owens will race for a championship. Johnny Thomas will race for a championship, and Jonathan Cutlip made it back into the playoffs. He'll race for a championship. He's definitely a threat. I'm excited. Should be a fun little playoffs.
And certainly, I think, at least from the broadcasting standpoint, I know everybody is, at least their top 2 finishers don't seem too excited about going to the geographic center of the state of Ohio. But certainly the road courses have tended to put on some pretty exciting racing for us this season here in Elite. And then Kansas is always just a really great racetrack. And of course, we'll get to do some more of that super speedway stuff to wrap up the first round of the playoffs at Talladega.
Absolutely. Those will be fun races. It's going to be a good round. I guarantee you a few more of those chase drivers aren't real thrilled about Mid-Ohio, but that's what they've got. That's what they're going to have to go take advantage of if they want to race for a championship. For this group, we'll call it a night here. My name is David Westergreen. I have been joined by David Huckleberry, Zach Evans for the Numbers by Joe 250, and we will catch you guys next week for Mid-Ohio.